A wonderful leader, but you're going to be my first example to everyone.
Okay.
We don't want to hear everyone's credentials.
All right.
We just want to know what's your concern.
Okay, my concern is like specialized high schools, because as Parents Association, you know, a lot of parents come to me, as you mentioned, announced that you're going to have a change, the method of testing,
Yes.
or the policy of the reviewing and process.
Yes.
So they're very concerned about, you know, how you're going to change, maybe affect their kids' future, because that's probably the only way they could fill up the American dream. That's good education.
Well, I thank you for the question. It's an excellent question and very important. So I want to tell you a few things. First, my own son Dante went to a specialized high school, went to Brooklyn Tech. My daughter also, they both took the tests. My daughter got into Brooklyn Tech too. She decided to go to another school, Beacon. So I, as a parent, went through the whole testing process, and I have perspective from that, let alone as someone now, because of mayoral control of education, in charge of the whole school system. I have very strong views on the subject of testing. That's one point. I'll explain. The second point, I think your assumption, I think it's an understandable assumption, that the only way to realize the American dream is through one of the specialized high schools. I would disagree with great respect. I think our job is to make sure many of our high schools, whether specialized or not, allow people to achieve the American dream. I was with Senator Chuck Schumer earlier today. He went to Madison High School in Brooklyn. Not a specialized high school, a good high school, but not one of the great famous high schools. He is the Democratic leader in the United States Senate. You don't have to only succeed by going to a specialized high school. There's a lot of great high schools, and we want to make them better. The other point I want to say, at town hall meeting, my job is to tell you the truth as I see it. Sometimes it will not be popular. Sometimes you may like it. But here's my true feeling. I don't think anything should be decided by a single test. When you think about the finest universities in this country, they do not make their decisions on who to accept based on a test. The test is one of many factors. They look at grades, they look at extracurricular activities, they look at essays, interviews. I don't think the best high schools in New York City, that the entrance shouldn't be decided by a single test. I just don't. I also want to make sure that those high schools are available to every kind of New Yorker. And right now, unfortunately, that's just not the reality. So this decision can only be made by the state legislature. I will continue to ask the legislature to change the law so I can follow through on this vision of what I think would be a fairer system. But the goal here is not to reduce opportunity, it's to open up opportunity, and we intend to improve a lot of other high schools at the same time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to take a question from here. John Cho, right here. John Cho is right in front of us.
You can stand up.
Okay. Thank you. Welcome to Flushing, Mayor. I wanted to first start off by congratulating you and your administration for being so actively involved in the Flushing community. I've seen more of your commissioners than the previous administration, and I think that's great. We were able to work with...
Are you saying you've seen more of my commissioners in 4 years than in all 12 years of the previous administration?
Yes, I can say that.
I thought that's what you were saying.
We worked with AFI and other organizations to bring resources to Flushing. We have a 3-year contract to promote Flushing through a district marketing campaign called Flushing Fantastic.
With small business services.
Yes, I want to give this to you.
Thank you.
And I want to give kudos to the commissioner, Greg Bishop, for doing such a wonderful job of Neighborhood 360.
Excellent.
My question is, we worked with the planning, your city planning department over a year to put together Flushing West and to start having comprehensive planning that would address many of the things that you talked about: affordable housing, congestion, lack of school seats.
Yes.
Your administration decided to put that on the table, and we no longer have a comprehensive public process for planning and addressing our needs in Flushing. As someone who represents the businesses and works with local residents, I would like to get your guarantee that we will have back on the table a comprehensive public planning process to address all the needs that are going to be discussed today.
Well, I want to give you a modified answer. Again, my goal is to always be straightforward here. There was originally a vision for rezoning, and the council member referred to it. We, in the beginning of the administration, laid out a number of places where we thought a rezoning would make sense. We've been very honest along the way that we take into account community concerns, elected official concerns, and then the things we learn along the way about whether a rezoning is going to work or not. We've come to the conclusion with the council member that the original plan for rezoning will not work. We've pulled it back formally now. There's many other places in the city where there are rezoning plans that are moving forward, including today in East Harlem, for example. So we're going to keep our focus where we think we can have the highest impact, the most immediate impact. That doesn't mean we can't do a planning process to work with the community. But I want to be clear, a rezoning is obviously a particularly concentrated and effective way to address issues. We don't think we can do that now, but we are going to work with the council member and with the community to try and plan coherently on an ongoing basis, because we know there's very serious issues and it's a very dynamic community. So I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that?
I would like to say that this really was an important...
Introduce yourself.
Yes, I'm John Young. I'm Director of the Queens Office of City Planning. Good evening, everyone. And we had a great opportunity to begin to study Flushing and really come up with a set of issues that we think are important to make this community, as Councilmember Koo said, a world-class neighborhood. And with these ideas, we now have a number of strategies we can move forward on as part of individual opportunities working with some of our partner agencies. So we are going to continue to think about what we can do to clean up Flushing Creek, working with DEP. We're going to do a separate study of Flushing Creek's ecology. We're going to launch that next year, and we really think that's going to build on some of the concerns we heard during Flushing's planning process. And we look forward to continuing implementing some of the services you've already mentioned with SBS to help grow the business community here. So,
and the Flushing Waterfront Revitalization Plan. Speak about that.
So one of the main opportunity areas that we identified with that was how to revitalize the area along Flushing Creek itself, and noted that these sites have very unique characteristics, and what we wanted to come up was a master plan to make sure that those sites had the opportunity to participate in Flushing's growth, but do it in a way that minimized the way they would add to the burden of the neighborhood streets. So we want to work with those property owners, work with the elected officials, and make sure that there's a planning process that goes to the public review for implementing what we call a special waterfront district. And that's going to create a lot of common sense strategies for those developments to increase open space. If everyone redevelops sites on the waterfront, we could grow 8 acres of new open space in an area that severely needs open space resources.
Thank you. That's a very exciting prospect. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I have to be fair, so we take turns, right? Now we go to this, no, I took different already. Okay, I see that lady there, Tina. Yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Koo. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for being here. Flushing small businesses need your help too. In the downtown Flushing, we've lost over 1,200 affordable parking spaces due to development of municipal lot 1 and 3, which has created significant hardship for our small businesses and also increased traffic congestion. We would very much like to ask for your support and commitment to promote balanced development that will take into account the needs of our small businesses, which, as Councilman Koo has said, are the economic engines of our community, who also create jobs. And for the community to continue to thrive, we need to create an environment that helps businesses.
So I'm going to hold on 1 second, because I want to ask a definition. You said an important thing, balanced growth, balanced development. What does it mean to you in the fewest words possible? What does that mean to you?
Well, it means that although affordable housing is important and we know that there's a need for it, we'd also like to consider the entire community. For instance, we've already had affordable housing in municipal lot 1 and 3, but we'd also like to be able to help the businesses to have more affordable parking as well.
So I'm going to interpret your question as saying you want more parking spaces.
Affordable parking.
Affordable parking, okay. But I want, okay, so again, welcome to the town hall meeting, where when I say that, my job is to tell you the truth. So we believe, first of all, the affordable housing crisis is so deep in this city that, and we're not going to do back and forth, so you can give up the microphone, it's okay. The affordable housing crisis is so deep in this city that the #1 priority, when we have available land, city-owned land, or we have a rezoning, the first thing we're trying to achieve is more affordable housing, because hundreds of thousands of people are trying to get it. And if you don't have affordable housing, then everything else becomes moot. So, second problem we have is if we keep increasing the amount of parking, we keep increasing the number of cars that come into an area, and we actually exacerbate congestion. So I fully understand, as a small business owner, of course some of your clientele is going to come by car, and I understand you want that business. I would argue, given the amount of growth, given the amount of new people living in the immediate area, that right there gives you a bigger and bigger customer base, even separate from people who need to take their car to get to you. But I want to be honest with you, we do not think, and our transportation commissioner is here and she can say it more eloquently than I do, we don't think about how to add parking as a goal in our planning. We think about how to add affordable housing. We think about how to add other pieces of infrastructure, mass transit, which obviously relieves a lot of the pressure in terms of parking. We don't want to see a city that encourages more and more car use. We think that actually would be very dangerous for a city that's growing to 9 million people. We're not doing back and forth. We're not doing back and forth. Go ahead.
I'll just add, Mr. Mayor, you talked about select bus service. When we were looking at putting that service in, we did a survey of local businesses, and we found out that they got 83% of their customer base from either people walking or using mass transit. So we made the decision those were areas we really needed to focus on, as the mayor said. And we know that there have been some developments here that have taken some parking away. But they're really, I think we're going to have to focus in the future on mass transit as the solution to handling the number of people in this neighborhood. The roadway can't really handle many more cars.
Thank you, Commissioner. So I'm going to go to this session. You want the two ladies here? Do you want which? She's going to ask one. Okay.
Quería yo saber, yo estoy esperando como 20 años para el permiso de vender comida en la calle. Yo pago los stickers.
Momentito. Wait, I want to make sure. I thought there was going to be overhead translation. I just
Here. Your major here.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm going to be translating
okay,
the question
start
later.
again.
Yo he esperado mucho tiempo para hablar con usted. Somos un grupo de mujeres aquí, una organización. Estamos esperando como 20 años para que pase la ley para que usted nos den el permiso para vender comida en la calle, los stickers. Yo he pagado desde el 1992 mis taxes, cumplo con las leyes.
Get translation.
I represent a group of women that are with me here tonight. We are street vendors. We've been waiting more than 20 years for us to get the stickers to be able to sit on the streets. I've been paying taxes since 1992.
Y también quería confesarle, porque mire, yo en el mercado negro, lo que yo tengo que hacer, pago $18,000 a $24,000. Yo soy una madre de familia que estoy aquí, bueno, tratando de salir adelante y solucionar, y quisiera que usted nos hace el favor de solucionar esto.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm a mother of a household, and what I have to do is I have to go into the black market and pay around from $18,000 to $24,000. So I'm trying to move forward my family, and I would like to see if you can help us somehow.
You can translate back, because I get the concept. I've had the same question at many, many town hall meetings. So just tell her I'm going to explain, because I know where she's going with the question.
El señor alcalde le va a responder la pregunta.
Okay. So we have legislation right now before the City Council that will attempt to address the concern of the street vendors, create better enforcement, get rid of the black market that we have now in the permits, but also protect the interests of the bricks and mortar stores in our communities. We think that the way to structure the legislation is to balance all those interests. We think it can be done. Our hope is to pass that legislation as early as next month in December.
En la concejalía, en el Consejo Municipal ya tenemos legislación que se está elaborando. Uno de los objetivos dentro de esa legislación es mejorar el cumplimiento de las leyes y con eso tratar de eliminar un poco el fenómeno del mercado negro, pero también queremos intentar el respaldar a los negocios establecidos, los negocios que tienen un local fijo. Es una legislación que trata de abarcar todos los frentes. Esperamos que dentro de 1 a 2 meses sea aprobada ya.
Thank you. The one question only, right? So as all you can see, you don't have to speak English to ask a question. You can speak Chinese or Korean or Spanish. I'm going to go this section, right? One section, one at a time. Let me see. Wait. The man in the right there. Okay, you, yeah. Come on.
Go ahead, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sang-Suk Park. I'm a Korean American Dry Cleaning Association of New York. I am representing over 1,000 dry cleaners throughout the 5 boroughs, New York City. We have a forum last week with the DCA, with the Carlos Ortiz Carlos, yes.
Commissioner's helping me out.
Yeah, oh, very good.
DCA
Hi.
Commissioner Lorelei Salas.
Yeah, we still have questions unsolved and unanswered from our issue.
This
our
is about
issue
the application requirement?
Yes, new local law.
We have an answer for you. We have an answer. So I'll start, and the commissioner will join in. And obviously, the council members raised this concern to us. The goal here was not to burden the laundry operators. We understand how important the laundry operators are for the city. We want to make sure they are strong. So we are going to have a temporary hold on the new policy so that we can adjust it and make sure it works for the laundry operators. Go ahead and explain that, Commissioner.
Yes, so we will now be issuing extensions of time for the laundromats to be able to comply with all the requirements, but we're also going to be simplifying the process. So we will just be asking for self-certifications from the businesses so that, you know, especially those that had already been licensed, they don't have to go and produce a lot of other documentation that they already had produced to us.
So there's no change.
No, I'm sorry. That's not the my issue. My issue is, you know, as many dry cleaners has, you know, a very important wet cleaning process, which is involved with the. This is, you know, a very critical dry cleaning issue. Is because of this is, you know, very safe process of the dry cleaning. This is the most important, you know, process for the next future dry cleaning process. But this issue is. Still, this is what they are calling is a laundromat process. No, this is not a laundromat process. So my issue is, please, you know, solve the problem. If anybody has this kind of machine, who has a small machine, which need for the process of a wet cleaning process.
Okay, so I'm going to have the commissioner follow up with you directly, and she will make sure personally to see how we can resolve this issue. Okay. Thank you very much.
Now we go to this session, okay? Okay, Peter.
He gets one right there.
Yeah.
Okay, before I have no question to neither the commissioner. I just want to tell everybody this is a good mayor. You can follow him because he always keeps his word. 5 years ago, you were early in the library and you won the election, and you re-election to win again. And I think that we can trust him because he came here after election. Not before election.
Thank you.
So you are better than Michael Bloomberg. I think you are. But the only thing I want to concern, I don't want to give you a question. I just want to tell you about Flushing. The mayor of Flushing here.
He's there.
We have very good teamwork because the 109 precinct already do a good job.
Yeah.
Flushing downtown have a lot of cash talk business.
Yeah.
And that's dangerous. That's ourselves. Okay, but I only one thing. We are the New Yorker. We got on the same page with you. In the future, doesn't matter what you do. And I know you need more money. But in case, we have to show our attitude. In case if the DC cut down our budget for New York City.
Yes.
If we want to have same page with you, what is the attitude we should do?
Excellent. Thank you. Excellent question. Thank you. And thank you for your kind comments, my friend. You're a good man. This point's very, very important. I want to speak to it because this is something that's happening right now, which is the situation in Washington, D.C. I want to remind people there are 3 profound threats to New York City. And I've said this more and more. New York City, if Washington would leave New York City alone, we could do very well. We have a wonderful, strong economy. So many people here in this audience are part of making our economy strong, creating jobs. We are the safest big city in America. Let's thank the NYPD again, the safest big city in America. At this moment in history, unfortunately, the only things we're hearing from Washington are things that could set us back. The Trump tax plan could take away a huge amount of revenue from New York City for things we depend on. Think about what we depend on from Washington: affordable housing, mass transit, education, infrastructure. The tax plan is going to reduce the federal budget intensely. That's going to come out of us, even though New York City pays much more in taxes to Washington than we get back. Also, middle class and working class New Yorkers would see a tax increase because of the plan being discussed in Washington. That's one problem. The second problem is they're trying again to take away the Affordable Care Act. 1.6 million New Yorkers get their health insurance from the Affordable Care Act. So it's a huge danger. Would also hurt our public hospitals and reduce their funding. Third problem is the federal budget itself. If the revenues are reduced greatly, not only will they cut money for the city, they will cut money for the state of New York. The state of New York will then turn around and cut the money they send to the city too. So we'll get double jeopardy. That's all going to play out in the next few months. So in terms of the attitude we would take, 2 things. One, we're going to fight every one of those bad policies. And we're working all over this country with Republican and Democratic mayors and Republican and Democratic senators and congresspeople to form an alliance to stop these bad policies. The second is, and I want to thank Councilmember Koo because he has been a leader in the council in making sure we had very strong financial reserves. So literally the city of New York has more money set aside to protect us than we've ever had in our history. And thank God we have it, because these cuts, and literally could be in a matter of just the next few months, would take away so many of the things we care about. Teachers, police officers, all that would be threatened. We have the reserves to protect ourselves in the short term. We have a lot of work to do to protect ourselves for the long term.
Thank you, Mayor. We save for the rainy days, yeah. So don't worry, because too many people want to ask at the same time, right? We have time until 10 o'clock. You will get your turn, okay? So don't get up, because now you make my job difficult. All right? Okay, Christine here.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm going to make it really short and simple. 3 things.
One thing.
Okay. No, I got to give you 2.
No, one thing.
Okay, fine.
Everybody one thing.
I love Park NYC app. That's great. Okay, and I just like to thank you, huge thank you for, we've been trying 20 years to have Lunar New Year as a school holiday, but thing is, always fall into the spring recess. We're not really celebrating, so I just want to know, is it like always in the, like since like 4 years ago, it's never really celebrated?
It's whenever the calendar dictates. So this is true for all the religious holidays of any background. If the calendar puts the holiday on a school day, you get the school day off. If the calendar puts the holiday on a weekend or in a school break, then that's covered because it's a time when kids are off anyway. So we're not going to give artificially a different additional time off. Okay. It's only when it actually falls on a school day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Right, go to this session. M. Paul.
Hi. I have a simple little problem. So the Bound House is the oldest building, or one of the oldest buildings in New York City. It is next to Weeping Beach Park that was once part of the farm. The problem we have is a quality of life issue. The Bound House is 15 feet from the park. People smoke. They drink, they congregate in encampments, and it is now, after 5 years, gotten progressively worse. The museum has had a capital project. Because of the open park agreement, the park
So wait,
Staff
just
have been fabulous.
help me to the punchline. What are you looking for?
We would like that portion of the park closed because it's going to go back to the museum when the capital project is available, the monies are available.
Okay.
To protect the house from the quality of life issues.
No,
At this point, we can't have school kids there.
I appreciate the point. Dottie, what can you tell me?
Actually, I am aware of it. Hi, I'm Dottie Lewandowski, Queens Parks Commissioner. Ann is raising an important issue. We now have additional PEP officers, thanks to the council member and the mayor, who are actually patrolling that area is working well. I wasn't aware that you wanted to close. I'm certainly interested in looking into that with you. There are some quality of life issues. We're working with the police department on those. And if locking the park in the evening hours may help, I think we can do that.
Okay, great. So you'll follow up.
I must add that
Please.
Inspector Harrison have set up enforcement on the pond,
Great. Thanks. But Dottie, you'll follow up.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
All right, now let's go here for a question. Let's go somebody in the back. Okay, Timothy Chong.
Mayor, welcome to Flushing, and we thank you, Peter Koo, our Councilman Peter Koo, invite you come to the Flushing. Because you are the Empire City Mayor, we are very difficult to face to you, to talk to you. So I will thank the Inspector Harrison and that guy who.
Okay, what's your concern, sir? Sir, come over here. Tell me what you want to talk about.
Ask a question.
Yeah. Okay, I want to appreciate it because the Flushing is so busy, and that's why because the 109 precinct doing a good job, and that guy have long hair,
sir,
right now no hair.
Everybody, hold on. Okay, everybody. I want to tell you, we have a lot of people who want to ask questions. Don't spend time complimenting people. We don't need compliments. It's very nice. Tell us what's on your mind.
Traffic enforcement agent.
Traffic enforcement agent.
Because Flushing short traffic.
Okay, I got an answer for you. Ready?
Okay, all right.
Okay, good question. Traffic enforcement agents. Flushing is one of the most congested areas in all of New York City. Council member has asked for more traffic enforcement agents. Chief has asked for more traffic enforcement agents. We will get you more traffic enforcement agents for downtown Flushing.
Thank you. That's a good answer. Yeah.
That's a good answer.
Okay, now we come here. Okay, now we come to this lady in the front.
You have to make sure it happens now. I made a public pledge. You have to make sure it happens.
Good evening, Mayor de Blasio. My name is Ms. Wayne. I'm the president of James A. Bland Resident Association. I'm coming with our concerns. We want our community center open up. The community center is a vital program for the young people, for after-school program, teen program. We also had a language art program where we taught Chinese, Spanish, all kind of different languages, and we'll also keep down the crime in our area if we can get that community center back open.
Okay, now this again, thank you for the question. I'll start and then our chair will add. Look, again, my job is to tell people the truth, that we have put a lot of new resources into NYCHA all over the city. We're trying to fix a lot of mistakes of the past, especially the ones that have to do with health and safety. So the roofs, for example, security systems, et cetera, lighting. There are some places we've been able to reopen community centers. We don't have enough resources to do it everywhere we want to. And I think this is one where we're not ready yet. That's the honest truth. We will keep it an option for the future. But again, honesty is the best policy. We do not have the resources to do it now. When we're in better shape, it's something I'd like to try and do in the future, but I can't do it right now. That's the truth. I will keep you in mind. Thank you.
Okay, and we go to this one. Okay, the gentleman over there, yeah.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. I'm here on behalf of the Star Trek Youth Cycling Program, which operates out of the Casino Velodrome. I'm here to ask you for your consideration to help fund and rehabilitate the Casino Velodrome. Star Trek is a youth outreach program that helps get under-resourced children onto bicycles, unplugged from their devices, away from bad decisions, drugs, and in many cases keeps kids off the streets.
I got you. You are looking for more money for the velodrome.
We are, yes.
Okay, thank you.
We have a thriving cycling community.
I know you do. And
only one velodrome in New York City.
I know, and that is a very good point. So let me say it's a variation on the same point that I said to the president a moment ago. I'm aware of it. The team's aware of it. It will be under discussion in the budget process coming up to the preliminary budget that'll come out in January or February. I'm not there yet. I'll be straightforward with you. I don't have it locked on yet, but it has reached the nomination stage, and we are paying attention to it. So I'm going to see what we can do in this next budget working with the council member. And it's the Star Trek program. Star Trek. So I say live long and prosper. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, now I think I have to ask somebody from here. Mr. Kim, yeah.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners, and elected officials for giving us this opportunity. I'm Kwang Kim. I'm a social worker and a president of Korean Community Services. I have a concern about the mental health issue in the community. Thank you, the mayors and First Lady's effort to discuss mental health in New York City. It is very important and much needed. So we thank you for all that you have done to bring this important issue to light.
All right, bring up your concern now.
Yeah, now going on. Thrive in New York City has been a great way to create programming around the mental health. However, it would be great to have some funding available for the community groups that are already providing the services on the ground. Currently, as it stands, through Thrive in the NYC, we can request to have a social worker placed at our clinics. However, because the social worker is a city employee, we cannot receive reimbursement for the service that they provided. And some of the challenges with this initiative.
Okay, well, I think we got the basic concept here. So also, if we're providing it, though, we cover the cost, don't we?
Yeah,
This is our health commissioner, Dr. Bassett. Go ahead.
Good evening,
Thank
sir.
you.
I'm really glad that you're benefiting from this program. We're very proud of it. I think it's a little bit complicated, so let me speak with you about it afterwards. But these are people who are actually employed through the city university system, through their nonprofit. They are students, in a sense, that they are getting their supervised hours, and that's the principal intention of the program is to provide services to clients and to provide hours to these recent graduates.
So let's do this. She will follow up.
With you afterwards.
The commissioner will follow up. But let me say thank you, and I will pass on your comments to my wife. She'll appreciate it. But the goal of Thrive is to make more and more mental health services available at the community level, to make her culturally competent in every language. So the commissioner will follow up and make sure that between her agency and the First Lady's team that they're doing everything they can to support your organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's it.
The gentleman in the front, yeah.
Hi, Mayor. Thank you, Councilman Peter Koo. What Tina, like BID President mentioned, because Lot 1, a lot of our merchants, I'm a small business merchant association, like 43 of our merchant association lost their business because of Lot 1 project, because they lost parking space. So one of the things that Councilman Peter Koo helped us out was for beautification, Union Street beautification funding, which was 5 years ago, $500,000. We're trying to get DOT to help us help the business out because of constructions, all our members have a lot of problems.
Where exactly, please?
That's our merchants are Union Street between Northern Boulevard and Roosevelt Avenue.
Okay, and forgive my ignorance, is there construction still going on now?
It's done.
It's done.
But
phase 1 is done. Phase 1 is done.
So what? Give me a very specific thing you're asking for.
Yes, there was a funding for $500,000 to help the businesses out because of the construction, but we cannot use that money for 5 years. DOT has the money.
Okay. Do you, Polly, does this make sense to you?
Yeah, this is not one I'm familiar with, but
Okay.
I'm happy
You'll
to.
follow up?
I'll come.
Okay.
Okay.
No, but
I will
again,
come catch you and talk to you and see if we can figure it
Let's
out.
see if we can figure a way. We weren't here 5 years ago, but let's see if we can find a way to help you with that. We'll follow up. Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Now go to this session.
I'll catch you afterwards.
This gentleman right there.
한국말로 하겠습니다. 저 translator, please.
We have a translator? I'm listening for a translator.
Korean.
Who is doing it?
뭐 그래도 되고요.
Korean translator. Marco, what's going on? Marco is not the Korean translator, but he's supposed to know where the Korean translator is.
Wait there. She's there.
We're not going to do the overhead?
Translate.
Yeah, she's right there. Sure.
Wait, she's ready? Okay, go ahead.
저는 저 민권센터에서 커뮤니티 멤버로 활동하고 있는 최정명입니다.
My name is Jungmyeong Choi. I am working as the I'm part of the Minkwon Center Community Center.
우선 시니어 하우징의 개념이 너무 모호하고 어렵습니다. 시니어 하우징.
First of all, the concept of senior housing is very complicated and hard to understand.
뉴욕시에는 시니어 하우징뿐만 아니라 affordable housing, public housing, city housing, 다양한 종류의 하우징이 있습니다.
Besides senior housing, in New York City, there's affordable housing, New York housing, and others like that.
솔직히 저희가 바라는 것은 시장 가격보다 저렴하게 집을 구해 사는 것인데 저희는 이 개념들의 차이를 잘 알지 못합니다.
All we're asking for is basically to get housing for prices that are lower than what's out in the market, and all these differences don't really speak to us.
Okay.
또한 이러한 하우징을 구하기 위해서 디파트먼트 for the aging 사이트에 접속해 보았지만 제대로 된 번역본을 구할 수가 없었습니다.
We've been to the Department of Aging website, but proper translation.
I've got it.
Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I've learned something today that the word in Korean for senior housing is senior housing. Okay, so that's good to know. We want to make the way people apply for senior housing simpler.
저희도 시니어 하우징에 그 어플라이하는 방법을 조금 더 단순하게 바꾸기 위해 노력하고 있습니다.
Because we are greatly increasing the amount of affordable senior apartments that will be available.
저희는 조금 더 저렴한 가격으로 가질 수 있는 시니어 하우징을 더 많이 하도록 지금 노력하고 있습니다.
So our Department of Housing will follow up with you to make sure that all of the appropriate materials are translated into Korean, and that if we're working with a community organization like yours, that we have people available to help your organization navigate the different programs.
저희는 커미셔너를 통해서 그 한국어 등 다양한 언어로 그 번역본이 있도록 하도록 노력하겠고, 그리고 또 민권센터 같은 그런 비영리 단체들을 통해서도 이런 것들이 조금 더 간단하게 될 수 있도록 노력하겠습니다.
Thank you. So we'll follow up right away. Thank you.
All right.
Go ahead, Peter.
감사합니다.
I'm going to go to this side. I found something. That gentleman there.
I don't know.
Thank you for the mayor come to Flushing. I'm from Henan Chinese American Associates. So from Henan Tongxianghui. Thank you. As we know, New York City is beautiful and the mayor is handsome. And
I like this question. It's a very, very smart person asking this question.
And the city, more and more people come to live in the city. But I know the city and the administration take a lot of effort to improve the infrastructure. But however, I found the traffic becomes slower and slower. Yeah. Like today, I drive from Brooklyn to here. It spent 2 hours.
Yeah.
But actually, sometimes I know the city want the people to take the public transportation.
Yes.
But sometimes it's not practical. Suppose
your question is how?
My question is how the traffic becomes slower and slower. Yes. The city have what you will take what means and what plan to improve the traffic.
Okay, I will start, and thank you very much. I'll start, and the commissioner will finish. We really believe if we greatly increase the amount of mass transit, which means the select bus service, It means the ferry service. It means the light rail between Brooklyn and Queens. It means city bike. Excuse me, everything we can do. That's going to change things a lot. But the second thing is to improve the flow of traffic. And we're going to start a very important experiment. Commissioner will explain it to you. Starting in January, some very new approaches to end some of the congestion, particularly related to delivery vehicles, and particularly in the rush hours. And some of that's going to actually start right here in Queens. Commissioner.
Right, and actually one approach that we're going to get finished by the end of this year is something called flushing in motion, which we've used in Midtown. We're going to work to retime the signals in 15 different very key intersections. We hope that will help somewhat with the flow of traffic in Flushing. And then, as the mayor mentioned, we're looking to do some bigger experiments, particularly looking at how we can clear curbs during the rush hour period. We're going to actually start in Roosevelt Avenue over in Jackson Heights, and if that works, bring it over here into Flushing. We're going to be looking also at creating more moving lanes. We're going to try and work with the state to see what we can do to do some work together on the highways. I was on the road tonight, and yes, it was pretty bad on a lot of the highways tonight. So the mayor has announced a big congestion plan. Some of the things we're going to be starting with right here in Flushing, and other things trying out in other parts of the city, and we'll see what we can do that'll work.
Thank you.
Okay, no, one of you, which one represent all you? Just one person. Yeah. Okay. Just sit down. Sit down.
我代表电摊车送外卖，各种注册西班牙飞。
Hold on, we have translation ready.
翻译啊，你讲翻译。
Yes. Okay, go ahead, sir. Go ahead. Go ahead. Go ahead.
纽约送外卖的电单车，我要求政府给予合法化。为什么？纽约民以食为天，纽约吃外卖的起码几十万、100万人去。
Okay.
We have served the food, and we have to deliver the food, and we want to New York City can give us more protection.
Wait, I'm understand when he says serving the food, delivering the food.
Delivering the food, yes.
But who? Who is he representing?
你代表的是谁?
May I translate for him? May I translate for him? And
bicycle.
He's one of the e-bike delivery worker, and his question is, he's
one of the which workers? I'm sorry.
E-bike delivery worker.
Ah, okay, good.
And he's thinking, city can legalize protection for e-bike workers because most of them are immigrants.
I got it. Thank you. Thank you for the question. So, okay, we want to be very clear. The policy that we are going to implement starting in January related to the e-bikes. The state law today says e-bikes are not legal to be used on the streets of New York City. It has been happening for a long time, that's true, but it actually has not been legal, and we are not going to allow it to continue. Other forms of deliveries, you can use a car, you can use a regular bicycle, you can go on foot, there's all sorts of other ways to deliver food, but we're not going to allow e-bikes. There is the chance to change the state law in Albany next year if we can find a way to do it that protects public safety. And we will certainly see if there's some way to do that. But right now, it's become increasingly clear around the city that the e-bikes have created a safety problem for pedestrians. We made a very clear decision that we're not going to allow their use. Now, we've told the businesses, you have all the way till January to change your approach. And before there were e-bikes, people still managed to deliver food and other services. But the penalties are going to be focused on the businesses, not the people who ride the bikes. Any fines, any penalties will be directed at the business owners.
所以呢，我们现在是明令的禁止这个e-bike呢是不允许使用的，直到1月份为止。但是呢，我们将来的罚款呢，这个罚款呢将会是你们的所在的那个公司，而不是你们本人。我们不会罚你们本人。
我认为那个电动车对民众没有造成伤害。能不能翻译一下
？That's it. Next question.
One at a time. No, sit down. Okay. The lady in the back, in the blue shirt. Yeah, right there. Where you? Yeah. In the blue shirt.
Hey, thank you, Councilman, Mayor. I'm here with Guardians of Flushing Bay.
Flushing Bay and Creek are important assets to area residents and recreational human-powered boaters. They come from all over New York City to use the waterways. Unfortunately, Flushing Bay and Creek actually have the highest amount of combined sewage overflow pollution in the city. And it's actually up to 3 billion gallons of discharge per year. So in order to kind of look at that, the city's long-term control plan, which was recently approved by the state, it actually doesn't at all propose reducing that flow of raw sewage and unfiltered stormwater, which would make it so that they're actually proposing chlorination, which is an unproven technology, and it will still allow toxic chemicals and trash, oils, smells, plastics, and other pollutions to continue. So my question is, can the city revisit this plan to include the reduction in capture, not chlorination, of combined sewage overflow to make these central waterways safer for both wildlife and people?
So I'm going to, before the commissioner speaks, first of all, thank you for a very heartfelt question, and I know you've done your research. I'm not sure that means we agree with you. So I want Commissioner to begin by expressing whether he agrees to all the premises of the question. This is our DP Commissioner, Vinny Sapienza.
And thank you for the question. So you mentioned two water bodies, Flushing Creek and Flushing Bay. So just first on Flushing Creek, folks may know we built a $400 million storage tank about 10 years ago. That's capturing about half of the wastewater that was overflowing into the creek. It's done a great job. There's certainly more to do. For Flushing Bay, we recently submitted a $1.6 billion plan to the state for approval to build a 25 million gallon storage tunnel. So those are the plans going forward. There's always going to be, just like there's a lot of traffic sometimes, there's always going to be overflows, essentially no matter how much storage we can find space to build. And so what we're proposing is when there are those periodic overflows is that we will add bleach to it to disinfect what goes over. You know, it's to build enough storage capacity to capture every drop of rainfall that hits the street. It's just there's no place to put it, and we frankly can't afford it. It's, you know,
water. When you speak to the chlorination issue, when your quote was quote unquote unproven approach. Would you say it is an unproven approach, or would you say it's a proven approach, or what would you say?
So a lot of municipalities around the country have been doing it. We'll all agree it's difficult to control, but we think our operators can do it, and that's the plan that both the state and the city are moving forward with.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll take this lady.
Is any of the affordable housing going to be smoke-free housing in Flushing?
Excellent question, and I have been stumped. I don't know if Chief of Staff at the Housing Department, Light and Sleeper.
I don't know off the top of my head, but I will find out and get back to you before this meeting ends.
Okay, so by the way, thank you for the question, but I want to say this begs a bigger question, which is when we build new affordable housing, do we make it smoke-free by nature or not? So let's find that out too.
Will do.
Thank you for the question.
Okay, now we go this here. I have too many people. Okay, you.
世简先生，晚上好，你非常辛苦。我是。
We have the translation ready?
Chinese.
Okay, and I just want to say as we start, I have been informed that at the end, when I give my final answer, I don't need to wait for you to translate it publicly because you're going to be able to hear it on the headset. So when we're going back and forth, I need you, but when I've given my final answer, then we'll move to the next question because he'll get a translation. Go ahead.
我是纽约华人喜农协会的代表。
Yeah, I'm one of the representative of Chinese community in Flushing.
今年的喜农新的法案，市长应该都知道。
Okay. About this laundry, new law, I'm sure your honor knows that.
这种新的政策，这几天市长都在我们华人的各大媒体。 我们的洗农的行业都在抗议。
In this past few days, all our workers in this field, the laundry, we are protesting.
在抗议当中，消费局已经有让步，让我们从 11月30号申请截止，今年的新的执照是12月31号到期。
Okay, let me get the translation. And this, we may be ready to already answer. Let me hear your translation first.
Okay. The deadline for applying.
Got it. Okay. I'm going to stop the question because we already know the answer, so we want to give you the answer. Commissioner, give the answer again.
Yes.
And I put on your headset so you can hear it.
Thank you so much for your question, and we have certainly heard your concerns. We have decided to extend the period of the application so you have more time to comply with the requirements, but we're also looking into simplifying them so that it'll be easier for you to get licensed, and we don't want to make it more complicated, okay? So I'm happy to talk to you if you have particular questions, but we have already decided across the board that people will have more time, at least 3 months, and we will consider extensions of time for those who are finding difficulties.
Thank you. New question. Thank you.
Okay, now I go to this one. Okay, the lady in the back, no, lady there. Wait, the lady. Yeah. Right.
Everyone's been waiting a long time. We're going to do as many as we can until 10 o'clock. Keep going, everyone.
Welcome, Mayor. Question. Okay, first of all, we run a food pantry here in Flushing. We serve over 10,000 people a month.
God bless you.
So we do a good job.
Thank you. Let's give them a round of applause.
The question that I have is, when you deliver the food to us, we really appreciate it very much, but when they park to deliver the food to us, the traffic agents come in and give us a ticket for $150 every time we receive food.
For the trucks that bring food to the food pantry.
Yeah.
That's not good.
And all the volunteers that come in and deliver food. So it costs us around thousands of dollars a month, too.
Got it. I got it. Commissioner, I know you got the law to enforce.
Church.
Pete, so I'm always confused on traffic enforcement between DOT and PD.
We're often the ones who handle the signage and the regulations at the curb, and then NYPD enforces. So maybe we need to take a look at what's happening at that particular curb.
So you may be able to create some new signage there.
Yeah, let us come take a look, and we'll work with
precinct?
PD.
Which precinct? Okay. So inspector for PD and commissioner will assign someone. Let's see if we can either change the signage or change the enforcement to give more flexibility. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Now I go here.
Keep going.
Okay, the man, no. Gentleman. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Ben Haber, and I was one of the plaintiffs.
On? Yeah.
Hello?
Okay.
My name is Ben Haber, and I was one of the plaintiffs in the recent New York Court of Appeals case that upheld alienation requirements before parkland could be usurped by private developers. If my recollection is correct, Mr. Mayor, you were a member of the City Council in 2008 and voted in favor of the 2008 Willets Point plan. The then Mayor Bloomberg reneged on his promise to Community Board 7 that it would have input in the developer selection process without any community input. He reneged on that, gave it to the Wilpons and their billionaire friends without any input from Parkland 7. Those bunch of phonies never had any intention of doing the 2008 Willets Point plan. They wanted a gambling casino. And when that didn't happen, they then let it stay dormant. Then they came up with the ridiculous plan that these billionaires needed money to do it. And the way to do it is to turn the City Field parking lot into a 1.4 million square foot shopping mall to make money to build it. That's the absolute nonsense, ridiculous. They were compounded by a terrible city hall that agreed to it. They gave them the Willets Point property that cost us hundreds of millions of dollars for $1. They gave them $100 million in subsidies. They gave them $50 million in tax abatement.
Okay, I know where you're going.
Okay, here's where I'm going, Mr. Mayor. You have a chance now to prove that action is more important than words. Tell us now, parks are not to be touched by private developers. No no mall on Willets Point, no mall on Parkland. And we want to go back to the 2008 Willets Point plan, which includes housing. These phonies got a deal from the city council, $34 million they forfeit and walk away.
I like your passion. I like your passion, brother.
Thank you.
Okay. I want affordable housing. So it's a very simple answer. I want affordable housing. I obviously believe that parkland should not be alienated unless an equivalent land is created. But I want affordable housing. So the city's position now, exactly to your point, the earlier plans focused on affordable housing, and then funny things happened along the way, and suddenly there wasn't affordable housing. Now the whole thing is up for grabs again. Our message to all the other stakeholders is, we're not going to move on anything unless there's enough affordable housing, period. So that's how we're approaching it. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, yeah.
Got it. Thank you, brother.
Okay, we take a question from the young man there. Yeah.
Good evening. My name is Muhammad, and I'm a student at Flushing International High School, which is the school. Yeah. So, first, I would like to thank you for being here, and I will get straight forward to the question. So, as a young Muslim man, what are the things you are going to do to make me feel safe and to make my Muslim community feel safe?
Thank you. Well, I appreciate the question, and let's start from the beginning. It's sad that you even have to ask the question. That's the reality we're facing in this country today. I'm very proud of New York City. In response to a horrible national discourse at this point that has vilified the Muslim community and treated so many people unfairly, this city has taken the exact opposite approach. This city has been welcoming and inclusive of our Muslim communities, most notably by deciding, after years of activism by the community, we decided to recognize the 2 Eid holidays in our public schools. We ended the surveillance program of the previous administration that was directed against the Muslim community. We continue to uphold Muslim leadership within our administration, in our government, including 900 Muslim American officers in NYPD. Our message in every way is inclusion, welcome, respect. And we are fighting against any actions by the federal government that are discriminatory toward the Muslim community. So I think New York City, in fact, has very consistently said, we will not tolerate bias crime, we will not tolerate discrimination, we will use the full weight of city government to protect the community. Thank you.
Okay, this young girl, right? Yeah.
Thanks. Hello. I'm most concerned about bullying in schools. Like, we see worse things happen in like middle schools and high schools about bullying, and we don't see action. Like, I personally haven't seen any action about bullying. I see worse cases in like the news and breaking news, everything. So how can you improve, like make bullying decrease or change?
Thank you for the question. Very important question. I'll start, and then the Deputy Chancellor will add. So I am a parent, but I was a parent of public school kids until just a few years ago. And they would tell me stories all the time of what happened in schools and a lot of things that they found upsetting when they saw people treated unfairly. I think the bullying situation has unquestionably grown. I think the digital age has made it worse and more complex. I think the solution has to come from a combination of teachers and other educators, plus parents, plus students. So part of this is taking every report seriously and making it easier to report, and the Deputy Chancellor will talk about some of the new approaches we're taking to make it easier to report, never sweeping it under the rug, addressing it, and also some of the restorative justice and peer counseling approaches that hopefully allow us to take a problem once it's identified, not let it fester, but actually have people have to work it out together. So Deputy Chancellor, why don't you explain how we're doing some of that?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. He's absolutely right. We do have a Respect for All program in every school in New York City. We want you to tell us if anything is troubling in your schools. We have 2 superintendents here today that will follow up with you at the end if you can tell us your school, and we'll help you with that. But you should never feel embarrassed, and you should never be afraid to tell an adult in your school. We have guidance counselors there, the principal, the assistant principals, everybody's there to help you. It's most important for you to tell us what's happening. So thank you for your question, and thank you for bringing it up.
This gentleman here, yeah, you have a question?
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Welcome, Mayor, to Flushing. I'm Tim Hall. I'm an architect. The director of SARA, the Society of American Registered Architects. I have a concern regarding our city's building. I think in the past years...
Get a little closer with the microphone. What's the concern?
Our city's buildings. In the past years, I saw many ugly buildings exist in our city. This affect our community quality, affect the neighborhood. Many ugly buildings. My question is how to avoid, how to prevent the ugly building.
Okay, that's a very, first of all, very much in the eye of the beholder, as we would say. And I think it's hard to say whether there were more ugly buildings or fewer in the past or in the present. It's an interesting question, though. Here's what I'm going to ask. Well, it's buildings department, but it's also city planning. Yeah. So come on over, city planning. I don't know. I don't have a perfect answer to this.
All right, everyone, we are going to cut out of this and take you to a local event regarding Christmas lights in Arcadia, Phoenix area. There's a press conference. I'm going to go ahead and take you guys here now. Stand by.
Just sort of fanning the flames. It kind of appears to be bringing up the war on Christmas argument. Is that what's going on here?
No, I don't think any citizen should have to ask the government permission to celebrate any holiday, whether it's Christmas or Hanukkah or anything on the spectrum. What happened here is we had a Phoenix resident who wanted to put up some lights to celebrate the entire holiday season and was prevented from doing that.
But he can still put up lights according to the city. He just can't sell hot cocoa, so why not compromise?
Well, up until today, that was not the case. And again, we're hopeful that the city will not take any further enforcement action against Lee and allow him to put up his lights as he always has. With respect to the cocoa, it seems to us to be an extraordinarily onerous requirement to charge somebody $350 and tell them the police have to fingerprint him to give some cocoa to your neighbors.
Is $350 a big deal when he's spending $10,000 on lights every single year?
Maybe not for Lee, but it might be for the person down the street and the person after that and the person across the street. We don't think that the city should be engaging in this sort of behavior for people who just want to celebrate the holiday season.
From a legal standpoint, you're more concerned about the precedence of this going forward?
We're concerned both for Lee and his family and his display, and of course we don't want to see this happen to anybody else.
Okay, are we ready for Lee? Sir, your name, please.
John Riches, and I'm the Director of Litigation at the Goldwater Institute.
Do you want to spell that for them?
R-I-C-H-E-S.
And John, J-O-H-N.
J-O-N. Yeah.
Okay, we'll go ahead and switch out the mics.
Thank you. All right.
If you want to run them all up your sweater, it'll probably look a little better. I can help you with some of those. Unless you guys want to all do your own.
Can I grab mine off you? So it doesn't get snag on it. Sorry.
Thank you.
There's mine.
Is there tort liability here, Jordan, if I get electrocuted?
We got under there. You don't want to tell me. I'm just making coffee. It doesn't have an engine in it.
Just a suggestion, because he's got such a great sweater. Maybe we run it up the sweater.
Yeah, I would say all of the wires probably should go up.
Yeah, because you're...
All right, everyone. So it looks like this press conference started early. We missed most of the background story. I'm going to go ahead and read this this press release that was issued regarding this story. The city of Phoenix has effectively forced one of Phoenix's most famous Christmas displays to go dark in 2017, and the Goldwater Institute and Rose Law Group are trying to get these legendary lights turned back on. Lee Stepanek, the owner of the Arcadia Christmas House, has decorated his home with Christmas lights for more than 30 years, handing out hot chocolate to the countless onlookers who came to see his display. But the city of Phoenix met with him this fall, threatening to shut down his display and ordering him to stop offering hot chocolate and cookies to visitors if he did not comply with a labyrinth of regulatory requirements. The city's vague red tape forced him to make the difficult decision to not set up his famous lights this year. The unreasonable requirements set on Mr. Sepanik and his Christmas display are consistent with a larger problem happening throughout Arizona. Overregulation is making it increasingly difficult to operate any sort of home-based business, which limits people's property rights and their ability to be entrepreneurs. Again, so this statement was issued by the law firm representing this individual. We just heard from one of the attorneys. This press conference being held in the front yard, the front lawn of this Arcadia Christmas house. And it's unclear whether we're going to get any additional sound. Looks like that press conference started early, so we were only able to hear the very end of it.
You can clip that somewhere in there.
Yep. Can they be near each other? I guess so.
Yeah.
We got one more.
Well, that's just down like he did. Oh, my bad.
Which end? This end?
That's good.
Oh, this one. We'll need to get this one too, yeah. Sorry, Lee, you will be wired for sound.
Yes, I guess so.
Anything you say can and will be used. Sorry.
Yeah.
Clip that. I will plug this in.
Here, let me help you with this one. Oops, is this you?
It's somebody else.
Okay, let's just
toss this in whichever pockets remain.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. So once you get up to the board, try to stand really still.
Mhm.
Because John was moving a little bit too much for them.
Mhm.
So just to make them happy, just stand really still.
They're shooting video. Doesn't video want movement? I guess not when you're doing an interview.
No, just if you can stand as still as possible. Just we'll park a spot next to the. Okay, there you go.
Okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Does that work good if he's right next to the sign?
Where do you want him to stand? Right on the line there?
Yeah, and you'll keep your spot.
Right here? What works for you?
Looking good, Christmas Lee.
Who's that?
You know who that is.
I do? Oh.
Are we all ready? I am ready.
Does that work for everybody? Okay, Lee, if you just want to start, say your first name and your
Sure.
last name so they get the right pronunciation.
Okay. First name, Lee. Last name, Sepanik. So, I'm thankful you're all here to take my story. My story hasn't changed from day one. Been living on this street for 44 years. Been decorating this house for over 30. Never had a problem. Never had any complaints. No injuries. Nobody ever got hurt. There was never an issue. New neighbors moved in about a year ago, down the street and around the corner. For some reason, they don't like traffic, which I'm sorry, that does create traffic. But there's nothing I could do about it. And they filed a complaint with the city. I met with the city staff. One gentleman was from Streets and Traffic. The other two were from the Code Compliance Department. And basically the way it goes, they presented to me that there was a complaint filed. I wasn't allowed to sell retail items. I wasn't allowed to sell cocoa. And then I said, well, how about if I give the cocoa away? So you can't do that either. And I kind of found that odd that you can't give things away anymore. So we had this meeting, took about 15 minutes, and their only resolve and their only negotiation in all of it was I get 6 or 8 people with fluorescent vests to walk up and down my little street, direct traffic, make sure nobody's driveways get blocked. And then the other was to do something about the tour buses, the trolleys, of which I never know when they're coming. They come at all different times, but they wanted me to go to Chase Bank, corner 44th Street and Camelback, and get permission for the buses and the trolleys to use their parking lot to load and offload. And I told them that that was not something I was willing to do, and I think it would be just too much for the people to walk from that distance. A lot of people, elderly, come here, people in wheelchairs, and I just felt that what they were asking was unreasonable, and it wasn't a negotiation. It was more of a declaration. And if I didn't do all those things, they would And if they got more complaints, they were going to come back here and shut me down. And that's basically where we're at. Questions?
Did it feel like a threat to you? That word has been used a couple of times tonight.
The fact that they were going to come back here and shut me down, I did take it as a threat. If they had not said that at the end of the meeting, and that was said to me twice at the end of the meeting, I probably would have put my lights up.
The City of Phoenix told us that they started receiving complaints in December 2014 from a handful of different people, but you think it's mostly from the new neighbors?
I know it's from the new neighbors. I've talked to everyone on this street, and I know exactly which 3 houses got together and filed their complaints. I talked to the police officer who represents the Arcadia neighborhood. He told me that in 10 years of doing the job here, there were 3 complaints, of which 2 of them were from the same individual. So you have 2 complaints in 10 years.
Can you tell us about the sign behind you?
The sign behind me is put together because not everyone knows that I'm not lighting my house this year. So I know there's going to be a stream of cars that are going to be coming here. I started the report with the news media because I was afraid that all the people that normally come here were going to show up here and I was going to have a black house. So, because my house is black, I decided to take all my lights, talk to all my neighbors on my street and ask them if they had a problem with me decorating their homes. And I've since now done 10 homes on my street.
This sign paints the city of Phoenix as the villain in this case. Is that fair?
Yes, it's fair. They took the complaints of 2 people against the wishes of thousands of people that come here and made it hard, so hard that I decided I wouldn't do it.
But that villain is also saying that you can put your lights up.
Never said they said I couldn't put my lights up. Not once. They never said that. They said they could not stop me from decorating my home. But after saying the other things that they said, I decided it wasn't worth the risk to spend 2 months to put up my display and then have the same people complain, and I know they're going to do it, and then have the city come here and tell me I can't continue.
So they told you, just to be clear, they told you you can put your lights up, but if they receive more complaints, then no.
That is correct. Yes.
It was. Also said that this is a neighborhood issue between you and your neighbors, not so much between you and the city. In terms of the letter that you sent to the city, have you talked to the neighbors in the last 8 days since you and I had this first conversation at all?
The complaining neighbors? Yes. I have never met these people. I've never spoken with them. I don't even know what they look like. I have spoken with every other neighbor on the street and found out how many people are in support of me, and it's pretty much every home on this street except for 3.
Why did you only name the city in your sign then? Why didn't you name the neighbors? If they were kind of the reason that spawned all of this.
Well, the neighbors filed the complaint, and I think if the city would have come to me with a different approach, I don't think any of this would have happened.
Do you think if you had known those 3 houses and gotten along better with them, that any of this would be happening?
No. In talking to their neighbors, I have found out they're really kind of complaining kind of people. I've found other issues that have nothing to do with Christmas that these people have been complaining about to their immediate neighbors, so they're not well liked by their neighbors down the street. I've just learned that within the last week.
Are you hoping you can do a Christmas display next year?
The way things are looking right now, it looks like the Goldwater Institute is working hard. Sal DeCiccio has been working hard. If I get something in writing from the city that I don't have that threat on my back, I would definitely put my lights up next year. And it will probably include the rest of the street like I do right now, which never had lights on it before. At one point in time, this home was the only home on the street with Christmas lights.
Are you worried that this issue has now just been transferred to your neighbors and they will also have to deal with this issue? Or have you talked to
My neighbors, the ones that are letting me put the lights on their homes now, well, I don't think I've transferred the problems to them, because since I'm the one that put all the lights up, they'd probably come back to me, even though it's their property. It's my lights, my labor, my wife's labor. So we've spent the last 2 weeks decorating 10 extra homes.
What's your goal with this, really?
My goal is just status quo of what I had going before this all happened. I wasn't looking for I didn't go looking for anything special.
Would you say anything to these neighbors? If you had the chance, what would you say to them?
Get a life. Move on.
Don't sweat the small stuff.
No, I don't sweat the small stuff. Maybe they haven't had enough problems in their life and they just strike out at whatever they can come up with that they think is important to them, but it don't seem to be important to anybody else around here.
If the city came at you differently and maybe talked to you about some sort of compromise, if neighbors came to you to a compromise, because again, they didn't tell you you couldn't put your lights up, what levels of compromise are you willing to consider going forward for this?
I don't know what I could do on my part. I guess I could put up less lights, but I'd still get the same amount of people. I made a recommendation to make my little street a one-way street, because I thought it would be safer if all the cars were facing in the same. I don't mean a permanent one-way street, a sign, like maybe on the weekends from the hours of 5 p.m. to 11 p.m., one way going that way, so they just come in here and go right out to 44th Street. That way their cars parked on both sides of the street. The middle of the street is wide open. Buses could use it, no problem, cars, but when you have parking on both sides of the street and then you have cross traffic, my street isn't wide enough, so that creates a problem. I made that suggestion and was shot down immediately. Then when they told me there were blocked driveways, I offered to have signs printed and put in front of each driveway asking people not to block this driveway. Shot that down and said, this is a right-of-way. I can't put signs in the right-of-way. But I don't have any sidewalks on my street, so I don't know why those signs would have been a problem. But I tried to make compromises. I offered. And they didn't go along with any of it. They had it in their minds what they wanted to present to me, and there was nothing I said could sway them.
Seems like putting up the lights is something you're pretty passionate about. How has this holiday, or we're going into the holiday season, been for you?
Well, I have a lot of extra time I never had before. I mean, used to go from October to January, either we were putting up lights or sitting out here every night. You have to understand, it's just not Christmas lights. This is a destination for people. People come from Prescott, Tonopah, Surprise. They just know about my display. They don't look in the newspaper to see if my home is on the map. They just show up here. And it's just a point of gathering. People get to see each other, maybe friends or family they haven't seen all year. They end up right here in this driveway and reconnect. And that's like the old days, and people don't do that anymore. And I just think it's sad that we don't have that.
I have one more interview for you guys. Jordan Rose from the Rose Law Group would like to say a few words to close it out. Then we'll
Okay.
be all done.
Come get your microphones.
Good luck. That was great. That was great. Yeah, you did.
Did it work out?
You did a wonderful job. Yeah, I mean, you just tell your story, man. That's amazing.
I've had some practice. Well, no, it's a true story. I'm not lying. Okay? I don't have any trouble remembering all the facts. Believe me.
Okay.
Okay, which one?
All right, everyone. So that was the end of that press conference, or so I think it's the end. We'll see if there's any other speaker. We heard from the lawyer. We heard from the homeowner himself, that resident who's been doing this for 30 years. This light display.
Oh, there you are.
Let's stick with this feed for another minute or two and see if anything else is said.
She doesn't have a lot of pockets.
Oh, no problem.
You know what? I'm going to do that too.
Yeah.
All right.
Nowhere to go, huh?
No, not
Bottom of the skirt.
Nothing good.
Yeah, bottom.
Mine won't stay.
Put back. No.
Did you see right there?
Oh,
there you
we
go.
got a winner.
We got a winner. All right.
Here, thank you. I'll hold it.
Under the collar. No problem. I don't know what I'm going to say enough to to warn all this. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It makes it seem uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just
don't move.
Don't move your right foot.
Don't move my right foot. Okay, that's a good hint.
Okay.
Don't
All right,
move
guys, there's
my
no more
right-
room. I'm going to touch.
All right, you want me to move somewhere? All right, you want me to move?
What we got here? There's a...
I don't know what we got, but it wasn't.
You have the wrong outfit.
Yeah, clearly the wrong outfit for this. Okay. If I move and it drops.
Is Jordan good there? Do you want her to move closer to the side?
Let me move over here.
Actually, she's okay for me because I don't know how to pull it. That's fine.
I'm clipping my...
Okay.
Ready? Whip you. Let me get... Hold on.
Okay.
Whip your hair for... Oh, never mind. Never mind.
Okay. Just that's what it is.
What we got here? Leather?
Yes. No, it's leather.
Is it
It's
really?
real leather.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. But thanks. But it's Christmassy.
It is. Thank you.
But they charged me like it was leather. Yeah, so if it's not, I'm really screwed. Okay. Okay. Sure, it's Jordan Rose, Jordan Rose at Rose Law Group.
Tell us, how did you and Lee come to know each other?
Well, my family has been coming to Lee's house for the last 10 years since our son was born, every Christmas. And so when we read in the newspaper that Lee was facing this possibility of going dark, we just couldn't believe it. And so frankly, you know, for my kids, I just said, I said, Lee, we've got to be able to help you. We had met Lee in the past, when we came to his house and enjoyed all the hot cocoa and the snow and the lights and all the displays that he made. And so it really was more of just the holiday spirit was like, we've got to help this guy. And so I think, you know, Lee's been doing this for 30 plus years, and thousands of people come every year for the holiday spirit. It's a non-denominational spirit. It's a fun spirit. It's something where the families come together and meet here. And to see that it went dark because he felt threatened and he felt that he couldn't do his business and he couldn't put up his lights and he couldn't celebrate the holidays because of the threats was just really distressing to us. And so until about 2 or so hours ago, Lee was under the impression that if he put up the lights and if he did the cocoa and if he invited families here in mass, as he has for 3 decades or more, then the city of Phoenix would come and fine him and possibly shut him down. And that was really something that he didn't want to take that burden on. He just couldn't deal with that. And so until about 3 hours or so ago, that was his impression of how the city was going to deal with his holiday display. And then about 3 hours ago, he got an email from the city manager indicating that maybe there was a way that they could resolve the issues so he could go on and do this next year without these threats. And so just as we were lucky enough to work with the Goldwater Institute, and as John Riches from the Goldwater Institute said, if we can get that in writing and solidify this for Lee and his family, and he could feel comfortable, so he could put the lights here. He's been generous enough, and he went and he's like a little elf. He's decorated 10 of his neighbors' homes with his lights this year. But we want him back here. We want him back here, and hopefully we'll get that next year.
Is it a simple legal precedent and a legal argument that the only thing holding him up, the only thing sell hot cocoa. That's it?
We just don't know because we don't have the public records yet to understand what the city's position was. What Lee felt the city's position was in his meeting with the city was that if he puts up the lights and there is traffic and he sells the cocoa, or any one or all of those things occurs, that they would cite him and fine him for that. And so,
to be fair, for the last 8 days, the city's made it very clear that he can still put up his lights. So that's why I ask you, is the only thing holding this up here is the cocoa resolution?
the cocoa, so I think Lee felt that if he brought traffic to the site, that he may be fined or he may have some sort of violation from the city. They told him that. So I think the lights bring traffic, and the cocoa is certainly the largest legal issue.
No one's really answered the question as to why he can't sell it, or why not stop selling it. Put the lights up.
He offered, yeah, that's a great question. He offered to as a part of that, he said, well, can I just give it away, just like we do on Halloween, right? Just like the lemonade stands sometimes do for charitable causes, and people bring donations.
Why not just stop selling it altogether? Why not just leave the issue out of it? That seems like to a reasonable person in the valley, 3 million people or so, that seems like a very reasonable compromise to just ignore this and put the lights up. Why not?
No reason not. His issue, though, is still becomes there's lots of people that are going to come here. They come here every year. They've come here for 3 decades, and they bring traffic. And his impression of his meeting with the city, as you heard him say, was that they were going to fine him and shut him down. That doesn't have anything to do with cocoa. That has to do with people coming to see lights. Some of them are getting cocoa.
Impressions and reality can be 2 different things. How is it that we can't just say this is a miscommunication?
Well, here's a guy who's been doing this for 30 years, and obviously he felt strongly enough that he gave up what he does. This is what he does from October. In fact, to the point where I sat with him about a week ago and said, Lee, if 1 million elves, let's just say, or 1,000 elves came and descended on your home right now and said, let's put up the lights, let's help Lee put up the displays, let's help this thing happen this year, you know, if the city would agree not to issue violations. And he said, can't happen. This is something he does. He spends 5 days creating each of these little exhibits that he has. I don't know if you've seen the photos, but he spends 5 days personally creating this artwork for the public. He built onto his house at one point in the last decade in order to have more displays and these little interior artworks. And so it's not something that someone else can do. It's not something that can be rushed. This is what this guy does all day. His family, this is what they commit to. And like he said, he's got a lot of free time. He's really sad. And that sadness is sad to us. So we just wanted to help. And if we can resolve it for next year, then that is wonderful. And we are thrilled with that solution.
Why go after the mayor? The conversation seemed like it's with city officials, this Brazier gentleman, and with the city manager. Why put Mayor Stanton's email and blast it out that way?
I think just as a communication tool to the city, the mayor is the face of the city. I don't think it's a personal thing against the mayor.
So all that you guys are looking for at this point is just a letter from the city detailing what they've already...
Well, we're looking for disclosure on what it is that they feel needs to change and why the threats and all of that. So I think the Goldwater Institute's put in for some public records request, and if we could shine a light on the information and understand that, then we'll be able to figure out how to solve the problem. We just want Lee and his family to be able to display their lights just as they have for 3 decades here next year. So, thank you.
Are you guys good? Thank you. Okay, great.
Oh, thank you.
Are you going to harass us like you did Lee? Say things down? What's up? Are you going to harass us like you did them? I felt like you were in
Oh, thank you. Yes. You can, oh, thank you. It is kind of worked for Christmas. Thanks. Thank you.
We also have we have another outlet that just showed up who's probably going to want to grab some containers.
I said we have one more outlet.
That's what we're trying to figure out. That's part of it. That's part of what this is. That's what we're trying to do. And that's why you're surrounded by all those neighbors right now.
I know, but it's all about hot chocolate. What about the controlling traffic? We need 6 people to be here.
All right, everyone. So that was the end of that feed from Arcadia, that Christmas lights controversy. We are actually going to take you back to New York now, where that town hall continues with Mayor de Blasio.
With the fire hazard and perhaps work on egresses and windows. It'd be a really low-cost investment for the city.
I got you.
So what do we have to do to get HPD to come out and invest?
Well, let's get HPD over here instead of standing way back there, HPD. No, I'm sorry. I'm putting it on you. Come over here. So, I know this guy a long time. I like to make fun of him. So, okay, this is a very good question. And I will remind you, our platform from 4 years ago actually pointed in this direction about trying to liberate as many basement apartments as possible. Now, I think the first, and you'll jump in, the first problem is some cannot be redeemed, right? Some, when it comes to egress and other factors, just can't be, they're physically not fixable or it's too expensive. But to your point about, in some cases, a more modest investment could do it, we're very interested in that. Now, I know the Deputy Mayor has been working on some ideas around how to revive more of these apartments and what kind of investment and changes we need to make. Can you speak to that, either one of you? Building
sure. Tom Ferrell, I'm the first Deputy Commissioner for Department of Buildings. We are working with Deputy Mayor Glenn and coming out with some proposals, and a decision memo will go to the mayor very shortly on how we can allow these basement apartments to be utilized.
And I think just from the HPD side, specifically what we're looking at are in places where it is legal, using various financing mechanisms and low interest loans and things like that to help work with local property owners to see if we can, in situations where it's appropriate, do exactly that.
Okay, so will you follow up? Both of you will follow up to see if we have specific properties that you know of that we can start working on. Thank you.
Okay, this lady right here.
Good evening, Mayor de Blasio. This is my pleasure to be here, and thank you, Mr. Peterku. I'm here actually, my name is Sushma Malhotra, and I work for New York City Department of Education for last 23 years. In 2007, I took initiative for starting Hindi language regions, and along with that, there were Punjabi Lote regions as well.
Okay, go to the question.
Unfortunately,
what's the question?
The question is there is no Hindi or Punjabi language program in any of the schools, and there are so many international high schools, and I came to you in July, sir, and I know I was introduced to Mr. Pendergast, but the problem is I went to Mr. Peterku's office as well, and
But wait. We really can't go too far in. Your question is you want more of those programs?
Yes, because Hindi and Punjabi, when students come in, there is no language program, there is no cultural, and the thing is, exam is there. Lote exam is there.
I got it.
But there is no
Deputy
classes.
Chancellor will follow up, but do you have an initial answer, or you're just going to do a follow-up? Deputy Chancellor will follow up with you. She's the Deputy Chancellor. You're getting an upgrade. You're going to talk to her directly.
How are you doing? Good evening. I represent the East-West School of International Studies. Last Monday, we had a big mechanical issue with our elevator. We have students that are disabled and wheelchair-bound. Currently, they're being displaced because
This is one of our schools, right? DOE?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Dorita, you just shouldn't sit down because you're getting a lot of business tonight. I would urge you to just hang around. Go ahead.
We request
East-West School?
The East-West School of International Studies, co-located with Rachel Carson, IS 237. So we've had a lot of issues with our elevator. We've put in a lot of requests. Even this year, we had like 9 service calls to the elevator for service. like I said, last Monday.
So just bottom line is you're trying to get your elevator fixed?
Bottom line, we want to try to get the elevator fixed. I know SCA said that the motor's been replaced.
Okay, SCA here too?
I have an answer for that because
I like it already. Go ahead.
Before, and John Shea was there this evening, and we're hoping that the elevator will be fixed tonight for tomorrow. So that is happening.
Back and forth. We're answering now. You got the point. So that's right now. But how are we going to fix the bigger problem?
I'm from SCA. The fellows are out there now. They're working on it. They'll have the motor replaced by next Tuesday.
So will this fix the bigger problem?
We will be overhauling the entire elevator now that they've sent it to the SCA. But that we'll be working on. But your elevator will be up and running and with a new motor on Tuesday.
Good. And for the bigger long-term, how long are you talking about?
Come to us. It's now, we'll send folks out there next week, and we'll have a plan in action within the next couple of weeks. I'm not sure exactly how long the full renovation will take, but it is something we're addressing right away.
Excellent. Thank you.
Good evening. Welcome to Flushing, Mr. Mayor. Very quickly, I have heard many times that in different meetings that the new buildings coming up or in the past, that there was going to be a portion for affordable housing. I would like to know where I can find this list. I have been a resident of Flushing for 47 years. And I don't want to be chased away from my neighborhood. And also something about quality of life. Who's watching the speeding?
No.
Who's watching the speeding on the sidewalk?
Ma'am, one each. So on the question of providing a list of affordable housing options in the community, can you make sure that happens for her?
Yes.
Okay, great. He'll follow up with you.
Okay, and Mario is your paisan.
Ma'am, one question per person, one issue per person. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
Transfer, please.
Okay.
Yeah.
We just have to go fast because we're running out of time. Go ahead. Get right to the question.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
시장님 또한 하나님께 이렇게 뉴욕에서 살 수 있는 축복 주셔서 감사를 드립니다. 예. 그리고 저희 집에 한 100년 된 집인데요. 한 100년 된 큰 나무가 있었는데요. 그게 자르고 그 뿌리가 깊어가지고 보루블록이 다 깨졌어요.
Do you have a question for me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I can actually translate.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
She's a constituent.
Whoever's got it, go ahead.
So she's actually a constituent that our office has been helping. So I can explain her situation quickly. So she had a tree in front of her house that's damaged her sidewalk since 2011, and then unfortunately DOT has been telling her that this is part of the tree and sidewalks program, so that it cannot be fixed, and DPR has notified her that her sidewalk is not prioritized, and it's now 2017. Her sidewalk is still broken.
What can we do about this?
I'm going to speak to you right after the meeting. Give me your address, and I'll get back to you personally with where the issue is.
Let's see if we can fix it. She'll see if we can fix it. Thank you. Go ahead. Next question.
Okay.
Thank
you. I think a theme of the night has been enforcement and accountability. And what I want to ask is, where is the enforcement and accountability on our Flushing slumlords? I want to point to several buildings on Sanford Avenue where DOB has handed down Class 1 violations, stop work orders signed off by the Commissioner Rick Chandler, HPD, Class C violations, and still these stop work orders continue to be defied with impunity. And these developers are looking to convert 100% affordable, multifamily rent-stabilized housing that is subsidized by J51 into condos. And still, we find that the tenants in these buildings, that they feel that there isn't enough being done.
Okay, let me stay there with both buildings and HPD. Before we even passed new laws, we wanted to stop, of course, any violation of a stop work order is a very serious issue to us, and we feel we were very strenuous in how we enforce that. but we've added additional tenant protections to stop harassment that is based on the landlord's desire to clear the building and flip it and get higher rents. So we have more tools even this year because of actions taken by the City Council than we had in the past. We obviously also have the right to counsel law, which provides free lawyers to anyone who's suffering from harassment or other illegal activity. So all of you, obviously Commissioner Banks from Social Services as well, I want this immediately acted on. If there's violations of stop work orders, we should throw the book at them. If people need lawyers, we should get them lawyers. If anyone's trying to undermine affordable housing, we should step in. What are we going to do here?
Sure, I'm with the building department. So if you give me those addresses and people are violating the stop work orders, we'll be out there and issue more violations and more stop work orders, right? And then we can escalate that up to criminal court summons and drag them into criminal court. We've also worked with PD in the past to be on site to get people off the job at that point.
Okay, let's do that tomorrow. So where exactly?
There are 4 buildings on Sanford and 3 others in Flushing.
Who's got those? Okay, Inspector, want you to take one of your senior people, team up with whoever's going from buildings tomorrow, and go to the sites. And if we see that work is happening that's not supposed to, we want it shut down immediately with police assistance, and then all of the larger sanctions. And I want the Commissioner made an important point. That can include criminal charges toward the violators. Let's throw the book at these folks right away. So will you make sure to coordinate so you can meet folks at the sites so we can do the immediate follow-up? Okay? Thank you. Mike, make sure it happens tomorrow. Like, when? Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, guys. How you doing, Mayor? Pretty cool. I have a concern. It's about hospitals. The Central Sterile Processing Department, which sterilizes the medical instruments, they use a chemical, formaldehyde, which is a known carcinogen, and it's considered a carcinogen by the EPA.
Dr. Bassett.
And it could, it can really hurt a human, like the workers
which
or
hospital,
the patient.
sir? Which hospital?
All hospitals.
Thank you, sir.
I wanted to know, how could you guys help and ban formaldehyde from being used as a sterilant to the medical instruments?
Yes.
Because in the, I think it was in the 70s or 60s, there was a scandal on how formaldehyde was the parents who were exposed to formaldehyde were giving birth to babies who were like severely deformed.
Okay, so your concern is that that's being used with the medical instruments and it could be
to sterilize the medical instruments.
Got it.
Yeah.
Dr. Bassett.
Right. Now, the first time, I think I should talk with you about your information, but the operations of the hospitals are overseen principally by the state health department.
But can we look into whether we think there's a bigger issue?
If there's anything that is causing harm to people, of course, as your health commissioner, I want to worry about it. So let me check with you about what you're.
Okay, you'll follow up.
And I'll
She's going to follow up. We got it. Go ahead, Peter. Will you find out?
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, and let me just tell everyone, hold on one second, my friend. 15 minutes left for the meeting. So after this question, we're going to try and keep moving very fast through the additional questions. Go ahead, sir.
I live in one of the buildings that young man was talking about. The construction has been going on for 2 years straight. This guy by the name of Adam Mermelstein. When you were a public advocate, you named him one of the worst landlords. This guy is driving us crazy. I can't hardly talk because of the dust. We've been complaining to the health department, and they did nothing. Finally, Councilman Koo and his staff, Miss Eileen and Scott, and then Assemblyman Kim and Tony got involved, and they started to write violations. But the health department did not release the report until, and it came back with an excessive amount of lead in these buildings. We have asbestos in these buildings. They were built before.
Okay, Dr. Bassett, where are you? Come on over. Sorry, he'll get him back in a moment. Okay, so we got a group here. No, let me make sure for everyone. Okay, so I appreciate that you've added additional information here. So something sounds really wrong with this site. So I've asked Leiden Sleeper, who's the Chief of Staff at the Department of Housing, who's going to work with all the other agencies to make sure this is acted on very, very rapidly starting tomorrow, okay? PD, Health Department, Buildings Department, Housing Department. This sounds really, really bad. So I want to understand how this has gone on so long and why there haven't been more consequences for the landlord. And Steve Banks, you can help us on this too. What has to happen if construction's been going on for 2 years and there's been regular stop work orders, something's fundamentally broken. So tomorrow, I want senior people on the site to figure out why this has not been stopped. And if we have to escalate criminal charges towards the landlord or any other type of aggressive action, let's go, because this sounds outrageous.
Yes, sir.
So you're going to follow up. Yep. And the issue here is there's a concern about lead exposure and other health issues. So I need the health department in this too starting tomorrow. So you'll have a person assigned to deal with it. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
I want to hear about it. I want to hear about it.
We'll follow up on
I want to hear about it. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Dorothy Wu. I'm coming from Casino Corridor Park Conservancy. Thank you so much for funding the lighting in the park for our safety. But I also thinking you could add a surveillance camera for the parks.
Yeah, we have it, don't we? Yeah,
No.
let's clarify.
Hi, ma'am, how are you? Back in July, I liaison with Taro Unit, and we do have cameras in those parks.
Okay.
And Casino Corridor.
So, well, and you'll follow up to tell her how it's configured. So we got cameras, we're putting in lights, and there's additional patrols.
I have a question.
Wait, we just covered the issue. Okay, real quick.
Okay, the quick question. We have very well fully funded the project. It has been for many years since we started the proposed. So it's a meditation garden. And
Ma'am,
we want to know
that's a different topic. I can't do more than one per person. The first one was about the cameras. We've got the cameras covered. We can follow up on the other issue with Parks Department. Go ahead. Commissioner will follow up with you. Go ahead. Fast, as many people as possible. Okay, everyone fast in your comments. No niceties. What's your question or concern?
We need your collaborative support going in the next term of office for smoke-free housing, to pick up on what was said earlier. HPD does have lottery for affordable housing in Flushing right here. There's a demand. Community boards throughout Queens, 13 of the 14, show support for smoke-free housing.
Great point, and I thank you. I'm very interested in this. This is. I want everyone to know this meeting. This is something where people have educated me to something we haven't been focused on. So thanks to both of you. And I think this is a great idea to see if we can designate more affordable housing smoke-free. So I want HPD to come back with a vision of how we do that. Thank you. Next.
Thank you for coming here, and thank you for taking the questions. Question is, your NYC food assistance program works very well. They're wonderful. We have started a food pantry, South Asian food pantry.
What's the question?
The question is, I think it's when we have so much food insecurity and we have such diversity, we need to have culturally appropriate food for people. We get people from Jamaica, from Jackson Heights, from Elmhurst, because they can't get it in those food banks, food banks or food pantries. So I think it's important the type of food they give should include culturally appropriate items.
And my answer would be that is the ideal.
Yeah.
But I want to remind people that we are providing free food to people in need, and if we're able to do the ideal, that's great, but if we're not, we're still providing free food to people in need. So, Steve, I don't know if you have a better answer than that, but that's my view.
And we'll follow up with you tonight on the specifics to see if there's anything we can do better. But as the mayor said, we're going to keep giving you the food and keep working with you to do better.
Thank you. Next.
Any questions?
Okay. With day-to-day homeless housing so expensive, couldn't permanent housing be built instead?
That's what we're doing. So I said earlier we have a plan that is to build and preserve, meaning subsidize, 300,000 apartments billions and billions of dollars of public investment. That's the number one thing we're doing. The homeless housing efforts are to deal with a crisis, but we spend a whole lot more on permanent housing solutions. Next, Peter. Next. Okay. Don't read your email, Peter. You're supposed to be moderating the meeting. Don't read your email in the middle of it. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Marzan. I go to Queens High School for Language Studies, and I have a question about why Pet Lounge Discounts is still open, because I had recently gotten 2 fish about 2 weeks ago, and when I saw the conditions that they were having in that pet store, it was horrible. The turtles were stacked on top of each other in a small
Okay, let me stop there. Who handles, is that Consumer Affairs that handles whether pet stores are humane? Is that you, or is that health? Who is that?
Not that, but we can definitely look at the consumer issue.
Okay, Consumer Affairs is going to follow up on that specific site. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Peter. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Bob Wong. Thank you for Councilman Peter Koo and Mayor Blasio.
Question, please.
Okay, the same question I asked last time in the town hall meeting. What's your initiative to find job and housing for our American soldier, for the veteran? That's all.
For veterans? A lot of different pieces. We have a whole initiative to find public sector jobs for veterans. In fact, we see a very strong veterans presence now in our uniformed services. We're trying to encourage private sector to hire more veterans too. We have a huge health-oriented initiative for veterans, particularly including mental health. We've ended chronic veteran homelessness. We have a new Department of Veterans Services, so a lot of different pieces where we're trying to help veterans. I wish the federal government did more, but we're trying to fill in as many of the pieces as we can. Go ahead.
Hi, this man here.
Mr. Mayor, I'm a cyclist and a driver and a bunch of other things. And when I'm trying to ride my bike from Flushing Meadows Corona Park to Cunningham Park, I have to ride my bike on Booth Memorial. And I was wondering, there is a ribbon of green space that runs from Flushing Meadow all the way to Cunningham Park. And I was wondering if there was a trail promised to Flushing in 1977 that would keep people off Booth Memorial and
okay,
in
I got
parks.
You. I don't know about 1977, but let's see what we can do about today. Polly.
Right, and this is what it's really, it's a parks, and to create that continuous pathway that I know we want to link between all those parks in Queens. It's both a parks and a DOT effort, and there's some complexities to it, but we've certainly been talking, we're open to it. We definitely want to meet with the cycling community and start to put some of those pieces together. We know it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have
running out of time. What do we got left?
Hi. James Trickus, I'm a community leader. Our concern is row bioswells. Bioswells are proposed to put in the sidewalk and collect rainwater, stormwater. In areas like mine, rainwater travels in a downward slope along the length of the sidewalk.
What do you need? I don't need all the background. What do you need?
Okay. Would you direct the DEP to include homeowners' option to keep existing grass strips, planted flowers and bulbs, or landscaped areas instead of a bioswell where the rainwater is absorbed and filtered?
DEP, what do you say?
The same thing at no cost to the city and saves $1 billion.
Hold on. What do you say?
We have an answer to that, and I'll explain it to you offline.
Okay, he's going to follow up with you personally. That's the DEP commissioner. You're at the top of the food chain. Wait. You got the top guy talking to you. Come on. Next.
Mr. Mayor, I'm with the CUNY Graduate Center and the Biking Public Project, and we work with a lot of immigrant delivery workers.
Yep.
And the new city policy on e-bikes.
I just answered it, so I don't know what else you want to hear.
We've talked to many workers that they all own the e-bikes, and so this impression that as a sanctuary city,
the law is the law. The law is the law.
We are trying to protect the workers. So
I appreciate protecting workers.
We want to ask you to sit down with the workers, the immigrant workers, to hear their concerns and to work out a reasonable policy that works for everybody.
We have a policy. I'm going to be very straightforward. We have a policy. This is state law. The fact that state law is ignored does not make it okay. So I respect that people own the bikes, but that's unfortunately was something that ended up leading them to violate state law because they're not supposed to be using those bikes in New York City. That's law. We will work with people to see if there's a way to rectify state law. that is fair to public safety. Is it DOT or is it someone else on this one? On the e-bikes. So the commissioner will make sure there's a follow-up meeting. I can't do it myself, but the commissioner will make sure that senior people from DOT and PD sit down with the community, e-bike community, hear concerns, but it will not be resolved until there's a state law change. Otherwise, enforcement begins in January. Okay. 5 minutes left, Peter. 5 minutes left. 5 minutes left. Let's see if we can get to 3 questions.
Hi, Mayor. I want to say congratulations.
3 questions. Wait a minute. Who's got it?
Hi, my name is Saba Ahmed. I want to say thank you for your...
Wait a minute, ma'am. You need to sit down. Ma'am, Peter. Peter.
I want to thank your administration for creating the Action NYC program, and I hope you continue to fund the nonprofits throughout the 5 boroughs and continue creating more programs like Action NYC. Because I was able to individually advocate and provide legal assistance for over 100 clients throughout the 5 boroughs of New York City.
Thank you for
Please continue funding that.
We will.
Councilman, in the last year, there's been an increase of homeless individuals on Flushing. I've seen them inside Flushing Library, inside Macy's, living outside and sleeping outside fast food restaurants, especially Macy's and McDonald's. And I was wondering what your administration is going to do to provide shelter assistance.
Okay, so this is actually Commissioner Banks can speak to that.
First of all, we'll come in and meet with you after this to see exactly what the location is. We have outreach workers out every day working directly with the PD to bring people in. We brought in almost 900 people over the last year from the streets. We're going to keep doing that, but we need the help of people like you who can help us identify people. So we'll be happy to sit down with you right now.
Okay, we're going to do 2 questions, right? Okay, you. Wait. You will come.
Special question. That's pretty good. Yeah. Remember, everyone, if you don't get your question asked now, all these commissioners are here still afterwards. 2 more questions. Where are we looking?
All right. Hi, my name is Oidi, and I am a student on the Flushing campus, and I'm here with the SASF program. My question is about post-secondary success. In a lot of high schools, they do not provide enough education or information on how to survive post-secondary, after college. What are you going to do with your degree? And most of the times, you only figure those stuff out when you're in college.
Right.
And, you're wasting time and money. So I want to know, is there a plan to help advocate more, awareness for students here, especially high school students, for post-secondary success? And should they be thinking about these things?
Okay, so... important question and a little bit complex, but Dorita, who should not have sat down, should have just stayed here. Even I warned you. So the simple point, planning for post-secondary success, I think, comes down to one part what we're trying to do with guidance counselors and one part what we're trying to do with the CUNY ASAP program. So I can say on the CUNY side, we have put a lot of money into the 2-year colleges to provide a lot of the support for young people go in to maximize their ability of succeeding and figuring out what they're doing next. Guidance counseling, I know we've made some additions and improvements. What's that?
And we've also done good work around college access for all in high schools, and the guidance counselors are following up after the first year of students going into college. So in terms of job preparation and career readiness, so there's a lot of that in there, but I'll talk to you more about this after. I'll be here.
Okay, last question for this lady.
I have a special question. Just just in the bus, show the each stop name. It's very convenient for the passenger.
I'm not sure I understood. Can someone help?
I'll explain. Her question is, can we announce the stops on the buses when they pass each stop?
Okay, the buses are not us. Let's start with that. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I mean, we can certainly talk to the MTA about it, and I think they are moving to try and have more of those automated announcement of the bus stop. So we will.
But this is a great way to end the meeting with an important question for the audience. My favorite question always. Okay, ready, everyone? Who runs? Wait a minute. Who runs the subways and buses? Is it the city of New York or the state of New York? Very educated group. But we're going to work to get the state of New York to do their job better, and that's a good question. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, if you have a question, ask the commissioner. Hold on a second.
Okay, I'll take it.
All right, well, that wraps up one town hall. Mayor Bill de Blasio holding that town hall in New York City. That town hall went on for about 2.5 hours. While this town hall was happening, another town hall was taking place, but in the South, specifically Huntsville, Alabama, where Doug Jones held a town hall. Doug Jones is Roy Moore's opponent for Senate to represent the state of Alabama. Doug Jones holding that press conference. Sorry, not that press conference, but that town hall moments ago. I'm going to go ahead and play that for you now here on News Now.
So many times when we're dealing with issues, Mrs. Sams will say, Laura, you're just a little slow on that. You've got a half a mile ahead of me before I catch up. But I have enjoyed having the pleasure of working with her, and we will continue to do so. I understand that our speaker is here, Mr. Jones is here, is the candidate Moore here. Mr. Daniels, Mr. Anthony Daniels. Okay, man is sitting there, somebody. All right, so they tell me Mr. Jones is here. Where is he? We have a lot of people in here, and we're looking forward to seeing him. And I want to thank each one of you. Thank you. Being recognized when you walk in the room. I don't need to do any introduction. Thank you so much. The only thing that I would say, a friend of mine had sent me a note that he wanted the candidate, Mr. Jones, to consider that he should use as a part of his campaigning. And I felt that it would be appropriate for me to use this statement as a part of my introduction, which is really short. He indicated, you know, the state motto is we dare defend our rights. And so, as an Alabama senator, I believe that one of the things that we've heard from Doug Jones, that he will defend our rights. He will defend human rights. He will defend women's rights, civil rights, Alabama rights. So if your rights are important to you, then we're looking at Doug Jones as one of those individuals who has fought, not just since he's been campaigning, but has fought over the years to improve the lives and qualities of individuals and making sure individuals who have not been kind to individuals like us, that they've been brought to justice. So I am honored to bring to you our candidate for this evening, Mr. Doug Jones, who will speak to you about his platform. And when he's finished, then we will start with the question and answer session. Thank you.
Thank you. What a crowd. This is incredible. And I really appreciate being able to be here at the first candidate debate. Oh, no, I'm sorry. There's nobody here. Folks, let me say how humbled I am to be here. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the opportunity to get out and talk to folks, to Pastor Scruggs, First Lady Scruggs. I appreciate your opening this church up to us, to the sisters of Delta Sigma Theta and Alpha Kappa Alpha. Thank you to all our elected officials, clergy, and to just guests. I've noticed as I come in a lot of old friends from this area, and I really appreciate your coming here to not only show support for this candidacy in this campaign, but really this campaign is about you. It is not about me. It is not about Roy Moore. It is about you, the people of this state. And I think we stand at a crossroads and we're trying to determine what kind of state that we're going to be going forward. Whether we're going to take steps backward or whether we're going to go forward and try to portray and show the country what we truly are as Alabamians. A caring people, a loving people that care about all people. I appreciate Representative Hall talking about the state motto that we dare defend our rights. And that's exactly what we have been talking about doing in this campaign from the very beginning. defending the rights of all people, regardless of the zip code you live in, regardless of the color of your skin, regardless of who you are or where you are in your life in life. Our campaign is for you. It is for you and the entire people of the state of Alabama. Now, we have started this campaign back in May. We started just in a primary when everyone said this was a long shot, though. But you know what? We worked hard during the primary. We got 66% of the vote in the Democratic primary. We stepped to the issues. And I promised my family and I promised my campaign staff that we would say the same things in the primary that we said that we will say in a special election, the general election that's set for December 12th. We're not going to move our positions because I think our positions are on the right side of all the people in the state of Alabama. We started out this campaign saying, and I told everybody, those of you that were here in Huntsville that heard me early on, you heard me say that I truly believe that the people of this state had more in common with each other than we have that divide us. And we, for too long, have let people divide us. We've let public officials, who really I don't consider to be public officials, because they're not public servants, let me put it that way. And that's not public servants. They may be officials. For too long, those folks have tried to divide us for their political power, but I was convinced, and what my experience around the state was as United States Attorney and as someone who's practiced law around this state for a long time, that I was convinced that we had more in common than we had to divide us. And I can tell you after now 5 or 6 months on the campaign trail, if I do say so, I was right. Everywhere I go, and it doesn't matter whether it's in Huntsville or Pritchard or Mobile or Birmingham or Fife or Coleman, it doesn't matter. People want to know about the same issues. They want to know if their health care is going to be taken care of. They want to know if this broken health care system that we have is going to be there for them. And I tell people all the time, I've heard the stories, and I've heard them on both sides, that I'm tired of watching folks in Washington just grab for power and play political football. What I want to see is people reaching across the aisle and trying to find common ground so that we can fix this system. We can figure out what works and what doesn't work. You know, this state, ladies and gentlemen, you know this. I don't have to give these the statistics. You know this. We're one of the poorest states in the country. We're like the 6th poorest state in the country. We depend on the federal government a lot in this state. This city, this state, I mean this area, it's about $7 billion worth of federal money coming to this area. That's a big deal. But in health care, we also depend on Medicaid. We depend on Medicare. We depend on the CHIPS program. Ever since I started this campaign, I've talked about trying to make sure that we reach across the aisle to actually see what's working and not working in our healthcare system. We need to bring costs down. Thank you. We need to bring the healthcare costs down. We need to make insurance available for folks that they can afford. You know, I've heard the stories about people around the state whose insurance rates have risen. And I want to try to figure out how we do that, because, you know, it's not just because of the Affordable Care Act, but there are things that have gone on in this last year that have made insurance really unaffordable because of the uncertainties in the market. For those of you who know anything about insurance, you know insurance companies don't like risk. And what they've seen is a risky business that they are in. And so when they see that risk, they raise rates. We don't want that to happen. But I also see this. You listen very closely. I know there's a lot of political noise going on right now over the last week or 10 days. I understand that. I got it. I want you to think back before all of that. I want you to go back to the summer, and I want you to go back into the early fall, and I want you to think about what you heard from Roy Moore. Well, you didn't hear much on the issues, by the way. You didn't hear much on the issues. Now, I know he's not going to debate me now, but he refused to debate me beforehand, and we were talking about, Roy, talk about the issues. Talk about Medicaid and Medicare. The response on everything that he had given up to that point was, I want the federal government out of health care. He wasn't for repeal and replace. He was simply for repeal. He wants the government out of health care. Well, let me tell you, folks, we got a lot of people in this state who depend on Medicaid dollars. They're poor folks, they're children. 60% of Medicaid recipients are children. And they depend on that. And not only do they depend on it, and I see some physicians and some healthcare people here, not only do they depend on it, but the rural hospitals and healthcare delivery around this state depend on it. They depend on it even for folks that are not getting on Medicaid. We just had another rural hospital, I think it was in Haydenville, that closed just this week. It's like the 5th or 6th. And they're closing because they're struggling because, you know, when this state and our governor and our legislator had a chance to get billions of dollars to expand Medicaid, they refused to do it. And by the way, these are the same folks. These are the same folks that not only do they say that they refused to expand Medicaid and didn't want to take all that money that would have helped us and helped our own budget, they're the same ones, by the way, that are simply saying, oh, pay no attention to the allegations against going over East Republican. By God, we'll vote for him anyway. That is wrong, people. That is wrong. You know, one of the Medicare. And so when you hear, and you go back and you listen, and you hear what he said about getting out of the federal health care, the questions are usually about Medicaid. But let me tell you something, when you talk about that, you're also talking about Medicare. We got close to 1 million people in this state, 1 million people, elderly, our seniors, that are living at home with their families, that are living in assisted living and long-term care facilities, including my parents, who depend on those Medicare dollars for their primary health care. They depend on that, which is one of the best systems going, by the way. And we can't afford to get rid of that, but if he has his way, and we get out of the federal health care system, Medicare goes away too. And that's wrong, and we've got to protect our seniors. We have to protect the seniors in this state. The last one I'll mention real quickly, because I was just really astounded when he refused to answer a question about the Child Health Insurance Program, CHIPS. You know, there's 150,000 kids in this state, or roughly, that depend on the CHIPS program for their health insurance. They don't quite qualify for Medicaid. Their parents don't quite make enough money to really give them good quality health care. And so that program is a godsend for those children and those parents. It brings in about $250 million or so to this state. And those children depend on it. The President announced recently that it was ended and Congress should act. And I've called on our 2 senators. I've called on the members of Congress, including your congressman up here, Mo Brooks. I said, pass that bill and fund CHIPS now. Don't wait for Doug Jones to be a senator. Go ahead. It's okay. Take that off the table. He refuses, or has always refused to answer that because he wants us out of health care. Folks, that program is not just health care. That program for children and all programs like that, or just like education, it's an investment in those children. And those children are going to grow up one day, and they're going to be your doctors, and they're your lawyers, and they're going to be the people that run all of the high-tech jobs that we've got around here. Those are the children we are trying to protect, and we need to do everything we can in this state to invest whatever we can in the children of the people in the state of Alabama. So we got to do that right now. We've talked about education. We've talked about jobs. I want to tell you that I've been up here and I've looked around. This place has got it going on, and I applaud you guys. There's a lot happening up here, and it's really good. Today I spent a lot of time meeting with folks in the defense industry and private business that are the beneficiaries of those federal dollars. And I've made it clear, we had a really great discussion. It was a really frank discussion, because I told them that, look, you and I may not agree on everything, but I will tell you this, I want to be a partner, I want to be someone that you can come talk to, lay out your case. I know how important those federal dollars are to Huntsville, Alabama, and this entire Tennessee Valley. I want to make sure that when those budget issues are there, that we need to make sure Alabama, and it's not just Huntsville, we got the Austin shipbuilding place in Mobile. This state is one of the top recipients of federal funds and defense spending. I want to make sure it stays one of the top recipients of defense spending because it's important to this state, but more importantly, it's important to this country. You know, I'm tired, folks. I am tired of listening to people on the other side of my political life use the same old, blah, 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 that he's weak on defense. Baloney. I got a family, I got granddaughters, and I'm going to protect them, folks. I'm going to do everything I can to protect them. So it's an interesting, but I will tell you that when we're talking about those defense dollars, I was very candid with them too. I said, look, you know, I get concerned about budgets that spiral out of control. I get concerned about tax bills that are going to create another $1 trillion in debt in this country. And I get concerned when people start talking about this and they want to make sure, and I want to make sure our Defense Department and our technology is there to protect America. But I also looked them in the eye today and I said, but you know what? I got other folks in this state too that need help, that need protecting. I got other folks here that need jobs, they need education, they need training, they need a helping hand. And I think government just should be there to help those folks. Whether it's health care, whether it's nutrition. You know, I got an interesting look when I said, folks, let me tell you, I understand your businesses and I want to help your business. But there are people in this state who are sick and dying because of the color of their bread. And we need to make sure that those people are protected as well. And we can do that with a government that cares for people. You know, again, I think the next 3 weeks are going to be really interesting. It started today. You know, they finally started calling me names. You know, and I expected that. I've been called names before. But we're going to stay true. Okay? We're going to stay true. We're going to talk about the issues. Now, I don't want there to be any misunderstanding. I think that when you're, you know, look, I'm applying for a job. Roy Moore is applying for a job. He can't seem to hold one. But we're applying for a job. And whenever you apply for a job, you not only want to talk about what you'll do in that job, you want to talk about your prior experience. And I'm going to talk about my prior experience, and frankly, I can't get away from talking about his. Because it is important to know when you're running against someone who wants to be your United States Senator, one of only 100 men and women in this country, one of 100 out of a part of our independent branch of government with the United States Congress. That's an awesome responsibility. It is an awesome responsibility, so it is fair to look at records. It is fair to look and see what someone has done and see what someone, and listen to their words and hear what they have said and understand whether or not they're going to be a divisive figure or they're going to be someone who can reach across and try to be effective by working across the aisle. So yes, as this last 3 weeks come around, you're going to see. You'll see things about our records. You'll see more probably about the fact that twice the people of Alabama elected Roy Moore to the state's highest judicial office. And twice he violated his oath. He violated the rule of law. And he was removed from office. Now, you know, down here we have that saying, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I don't know what about a third one. It never gets that far. But I will compare that to my record any day of the week. And I'm proud to have been, I started out, for those that don't know me as well, I started out my career with the late Senator Howell Heflin. He taught me so much about how to be a statesman. Not that I can ever fulfill his role in his shoes, because he was one of a kind. He was the kind of person that could talk to people and listen to people and try to bring people together. He was a phenomenal man who I wish was here today. He would be all over this race for me. And that's where I learned. And I watched as a member of the judiciary staff working for Senator Heflin with a Senate that was far different than it is today. We just don't have that kind of camaraderie. We don't have that kind of, we don't even have that kind of hearings anymore where people really know what's going on in the Senate. It's all done somewhere else. I want to try to restore some of that. Not only to try to reach across the aisle, I want to try to restore that some within the Democratic Party as well. That we can all talk and we can talk about these issues. That's where I started. And then all of a sudden I was up there for a year, and I was fortunate enough, my good friend J.R. Brooks, who's out there in the audience tonight, hired me as an assistant U.S. attorney and threw me into a courtroom and said, "Have at it, Doug." I said, "What?" But for 4 years, I worked as an assistant U.S. attorney, trying to find what I did for the people of this district, the Northern District of Alabama, trying to prosecute the crimes that came to us, investigate the criminals that were out there, to try to do the right thing for standing up for these folks. And then I went into private practice. Now, folks, I got to tell you something. When you talk about small businesses and jobs, you know, I left that office in 1984, and I just hung out a shingle. I didn't have any clients. Phone didn't ring for a couple of days. I thought that I was pretty hot as a lawyer. I realized that phone, I just stared at it for a while. My little girl had just been born. She was 8 days old when I just opened up a shop without any clients, without any business, but only a hope and the experience that I got in JR's office. And the phones did ring. And I worked for 13 years before I was fortunate enough to become the United States Attorney, to succeed to the office that J.R. Brooks held during the Carter administration. President Clinton appointed me. And in that job, I did a lot of things. We had a couple of cases that we prosecuted, but we also did more. We were up here a lot. We had weed and seed programs that went into the neighborhoods to try to clear those neighborhoods of drugs, try to weed out bad elements, and try to help seed in good, provide after-school care for kids to keep them occupied. We did a lot of things that folks just don't know about that the U.S. Attorney's Office does, working with communities and law enforcement. And yep, we prosecuted a couple cases. And I'm proud of the fact that in 2001 and 2002, through efforts that we put together, we convicted 2 former Klansmen, old Klansmen, for bombing the 16th Street Baptist Church in 1963. So, you know, I've told folks I'm not a perfect person. I'm by no means a perfect candidate. But this race is not about perfect people. It's about the people of the state, and we're an imperfect people as well. All I can do is tell you this. I'm here for you. I will be here for you. I'll be back at this podium as a United States Senator, if God's willing. And I'm going to tell you, I will be here. I want to just give you a finally, before we get into a few questions that I think are there, and then I'm sure we'll give you an opportunity to say a few other things that slip my mind. But my view about public service, you know, I can tell you that as U.S. Attorney, and I'm watching Senator Heflin and working for him, public service can be for good. It can do good things for people. And that's what it's all about. We did so many good things, I believe, in my office as U.S. Attorney. And it wasn't just trying to help people and prosecute crimes. We did a lot of really good things for people that helped them up So my view of public service is one that I believe is for good. But in order to do that, it's also a constant education, because I will represent people from all walks of life. And I'll never get everybody in this state to agree with me on everything. And you won't. People in this room, all of you who have given me such a warm welcome and applaud when you're supposed to be applauding. All of you, there'll be times when we disagree. I don't know it all. 6 months ago, I was a lawyer trying to find out where my next client was coming from. And I've been learning a lot. And I've been continuing. And I learned by coming up here and listening, to meet with those defense contractors and others, by going and listening to ministers in the Bible Belt, by going to hospitals that are both open and closed, and talking to people, talking to educators. It's an education process. And that's what I want to do. I want to make sure that my constituents educate me on their concerns and their problems, so that at some point we can sit down at that kitchen table that I've talked about throughout this campaign, and we can talk about those issues, and we can do everything we can to find that common ground. And I believe we'll find that common ground on so many of those issues. But if we can't find the common ground on everything, we'll stand up, we'll shake hands, and we'll say, thank you for listening, thank you for understanding, thank you for learning. We'll find that common ground on the next one that comes up. That's what a public servant is supposed to be. That's what a leader's supposed to be. That's what we don't have enough of. That's what I plan on doing. So thank you all. I really appreciate the opportunity to be here. And okay, R.J. Rhodes is walking out on me, one of my best friends up here, and he's walking out. I don't know what I said and did. All right, so I think we've got a couple of questions, so thank you. Thank you.
Our first question. Alabama is a very red state. Past extreme pressure on elected officials has caused them to switch parties. What are your thoughts about those who run on the Democratic ticket to win the election, then switch to the Republican Party? What would preclude you from doing so?
Well, I try not to think about them too much. You know, look, I can't answer for other people. I think that a lot of that, and by the way, it has gone both ways. It has not just been Democrats switching to Republican. You go down to Jefferson County, you've seen it vice versa. Some people switch a couple times. Let me say this. I think that everybody, that whether they switch or not switch, is ultimately, the ultimate answer is with the voters. They're the ones that matter. They're the ones that's going to have a referendum on that person every 2, 4, 6 years. And that's what matters. As for me, you can't change my stripes at this age, folks. I mean, I am who I am. And you know, for me, and I'm really serious about this, and if you could have heard some of the exchanges, I think, today with the group, I mean, it was a pretty conservative, business-oriented group that really, a lot of folks just don't trust Democrats. I get that. That's unfortunate, because it's really unfortunate for both political parties, and because there's too many times. And folks, we just got to get away from this. We've got to get away from the first question that is often asked me when I'm just man on the street or running, somebody recognizes me, they see something and they not really follow. The first question they ask is, are you a Republican or Democrat? And so they have automatically defined someone based on that answer. And what we need to be doing, and I say this to my Democratic friends as well as my Republican friends, we need to start telling people that the first question that needs to be asked is, what is your purpose? What is your purpose? And let's talk about the issues, and down the road, let's find out, and you can find out which political party they go to. But let's start talking about the purpose that somebody has in wanting to run for office, for wanting to be that public servant. That's what I think is important. but I know what my purpose is. I know my purpose. I say I know my purpose. My purpose is to represent folks, and I think you're safe assuming that I'm going to stay where I am.
And just a quick reminder, if you have a question, the cards are located in the back. You write your question, and they will bring it up to us. All right, for you, Mr. Jones. What do you think about the current tax reform bill? And if it comes to a Senate vote after inauguration, and if you win, how would you vote?
All right. Well, the tax bill is, I don't know what to think about it because I know what it is. It keeps changing every day. You know, let me talk about the process a little bit, and then we'll talk about some specifics. And I'm being a little bit funny about that, but we really don't know everything. The House has passed a tax bill. The Senate has basically said we don't like it, we're going to start over. But the problem is this. Just like the health care bill, somebody's sitting behind a door, behind the Senate cloakroom or somewhere, I don't even know where, and they're drafting that bill, and they're not talking to y'all. They're not talking to the experts. They're not having any hearings on this bill. That's one of the problems in the U.S. Senate today, that we don't have any transparency about what's going on. It was a problem with the health care bill, and you saw what happened there. Thank goodness. But it's truly a problem. And I think that the Senate needs to get back into what was known as regular order and to start having some hearings and to let people debate in committees and in hearings what should be done to simplify the tax code. Remember, when all of this started, the talk was we want to simplify the tax code. We want to simplify it, make it easier. The president held up a postcard, or Paul Ryan or somebody held up, I think the president kissed a postcard, if I remember correctly. But the fact is, if you see everything that's coming out now, it's going to be anything but simple. That is gone by the wayside. So let me talk a little bit about what I just think, because we really don't know what it's going to look like. If there's one that passes, gets far enough in the Senate, they'll have to go to a conference committee. We have no idea what the conference committee will do, because at that point they can completely rewrite everything, and you come up and it's a straight up or down vote with no amendments. So it's a little bit hard. People keep talking, you're going to vote for the bill. I'd love to see a tax bill done. I'd like to see a tax bill that does make the tax code a little simpler. I'd like to see a tax code bill that is a lot more revenue neutral than it is. Now, that may be almost impossible to do, but the current versions of what I'm seeing from both the House and the Senate is going to increase our debt by $1.3 or 4 or 5 trillion dollars. That's a trillion with a T. Now, we got a big enough deficit as it is to not increase that deficit even further, primarily because of tax cuts for the wealthy. I do not think that the working men and women of this country need to bear the brunt of that debt just so the wealthy can have a tax break for their luxury jets. And that's what's happened. Now, I'd like to see a tax bill. I'd like to see a tax bill that truly gives some tax relief for the middle and lower income. And there's ways I think you can do that. And there's ways that you can keep certain exemptions that I think will help. I will tell you, and this is not quite keeping with everybody in the Democratic Party, I would like to see corporate taxes, not the wealthy individuals. I would like to see some tax break for corporations, because we've got one of the highest corporate taxes in the world, if not the highest. And I want to see that, but only if we can make sure that money, and there's billions of dollars that's overseas that need to be brought back in, that extra money goes to more infrastructure. It goes to increasing more jobs, expanding the job market that we've got here, expanding manufacturing. These folks that get this money can expand their markets and make more jobs and make better paying jobs. Let this go down to folks. So I want to see all of that happen. I think that there's going to be, I want to go back to where I started though. I believe, from what I can remember reading about some of this, and I got to tell you, I'm just getting inundated with facts and figures. I can't remember them all. The last major overhaul of the tax system was in the 1980s when Ronald Reagan was president. You know, you remember he was real big on trying to do something about taxes. But he reached a consensus. You know, you got to give Ronald Reagan a lot of credit because of all the presidents we had. Well, Bill Clinton did a good job too of reaching across the aisle and trying to build a consensus. But they had some 400 or so hearings in order to get there so people understood and they could talk about it. We ain't seeing that in the Senate. We're not seeing it, and if I can get up there and they haven't passed one, I'm hoping that I can convince them to let's get it out in the open and talk about it before we rush it to judgment.
We have a question regarding health care. Nearly 6,000 seniors living with Alzheimer's in Alabama are in hospice. That's more than 20% of all the seniors in hospice care. Alzheimer's disease is bankrupting Medicare and Medicaid in our country and has impacted my family personally. What's your plan to tackle this looming public health crisis?
Well, I will tell you, you hit a question that is close to my home, too. This past May, we put my dad in a long-term care facility because of his Alzheimer's. It affected him in a much different way than most. A year or so ago, we knew his cognitive abilities were declining, and we saw that, but all of a sudden it started affecting his mobility. And he could hardly get up, and he could hardly move, and we finally got to a point where my mom couldn't handle it, and we called the doctor. And I'll never forget this, I drove him to the hospital, and he got out and he sat on the bench and waited for me to come back and get him so we could go in to check him in. And he walked in there with a cane, ambled in there, and that was last June of 2016, and he's never walked again. And from that point, we had to go to rehab, and we've been to a couple different things, and now he is in a long-term care. And it's a really sad situation to see somebody just wither away. So I don't know what I can do. I know this. It is a terrible disease that we need to put as much research dollars as we can into it. And I worry about a president's budget who cuts away research and grants in favor of other things. We need to be researching more about the effects of Alzheimer's and other dementia-related diseases. We need to be doing more research. We need to continue to fund all the research we can into cancer, another disease that affects everybody's family at some point. And I don't mean to tell too many stories, but you know, the day I was sworn in as U.S. Attorney, my sister-in-law died of breast cancer. So these diseases know no boundaries. They know no boundaries, and we have to make sure they affect every man, woman, and child at some point in their lives. What I want to see is more research and development. I want to see the best and the brightest minds to take care of folks. And I think the federal government has a role in doing that. There's private foundations, you know, people like Warren Buffett, and I think if I saw the other day, Bill Gates has stepped up, you know, with a ton of money to help fund research and development. And I thank God for people like Bill Gates. Thank God that this country has given people that opportunity. But he's putting it back. He's putting it back. And I think that there's a role, and I want to make sure that a budget that I have voted on, I want to protect those federal dollars coming in the defense industry here. But I also want to protect them going to health and science to do all the research that we can possibly do so that our people can live longer and have a better quality of life. So I wish I had all the answers, but I don't.
Where do you stand on police reform, body cameras, and racial profiling in Alabama? How will you focus on reform if you're elected, and what will you put into state legislation?
Well, I think that, you know, look, I believe that there's a place and a role for body cameras. I think every law enforcement agency in the country these days are seeing the value of body cameras and other types of cameras. It's a wonderful deterrent. It helps. They're not as expensive, but I think that for some smaller municipalities, they will need help funding. If we want to support our police, we need to help fund our police and our law enforcement, and I fully support that. Unfortunately, I think that there is an issue with some profiling, and that's going to require a lot of training. It's going to require a lot of attitude change as well. I think it's a community problem as well as a police problem. And I think the more that we can do to get police engaged in our communities, we've got to restore the trust because it's there. I will tell you, folks, that I have a great confidence and overall confidence in our law enforcement around this country. They get little pay for dangerous work. And unfortunately, there's a few bad apples. There's a few bad apples that it just takes hold, and we see that. But those few bad apples we can weed out. I really believe that with some additional training and awareness, you know, when I was U.S. Attorney, one of the first things we did, we started seeing, and this was 16, 17 years ago. Good Lord, it's hard to believe I was sworn in 20 years ago this year as U.S. Attorney. But one of the things we were seeing was that police officers were having difficulties relating to the rising Hispanic population in this state. There were some very good police officers, but they just had trouble understanding the language, understanding the customs. And we had a few bad ones too, that we had to prosecute for what they were doing to the Hispanic community. And that was 16 years ago. But we started a series of trainings around this district for local law enforcement officers. And we brought in the Hispanic community to talk about and have a dialogue. We've got to do more about that. We've got to do that. We've got to put police officers in the community because we hear all of the issues. We hear all the problems. But then, you know, on Good Morning America one morning, you'll look up and you'll see a police officer going down a slip and slide at a birthday party. We need more of those officers out there. We need more of them shooting hoops on the street with these kids. We need to let them know that police officers are not just there to prosecute. They're not just there to take you to jail. Police officers many, many years ago were known as peace officers. And that's what they're there for. They're there to keep the peace. We've got problems. I am concerned about them. I've seen them across the country. I think police officers need to understand, and we've got to make sure we give them the right tools, but we also need to make sure police officers understand that they're not military people. They're not military. And they're there, and I think we can do this, but you've got to have folks sitting down at the table. You've got to have a lot of dialogues, and I want to put more police officers into these communities to talk. There are communities around this country, and I've been engaged with some of them, or at least with their chiefs and their prosecutors, that are doing great things, and there's bipartisan efforts in Congress. To make sure that we craft criminal justice reform that both protects the American public, but also makes sure that we do the right thing because every action has collateral consequences. Whether it is a crime that's committed or a crime that someone is apprehended for and convicted of, there are collateral consequences. We also need to do this, I think, about that we need to look at very closely. That just gets kind of swept under the carpet. But we need to make sure that we discuss mental health issues whenever we talk about criminal justice issues as well. Thank you.
We have 5 key universities and colleges here in Huntsville. We have Alabama A&M University, Oakwood University, J.F. Drake State Technical and Community College, University of Alabama Huntsville, Athens State University, and several community colleges. What is the likelihood that PSLF, Public Service Loan Forgiveness, will be maintained?
I have no idea. I'm just being honest with you. In today's climate, we really don't know. I don't think we can predict, what's going to happen tomorrow in the Senate and the House. Hopefully there will be, look, I think that student loan debt is a huge issue for folks. I really do. And we've got to find ways to make colleges and universities affordable. But I also want to do this. I also want to make sure that there are alternatives for children or kids that are alternatives, that are good alternatives to colleges, four-year colleges and universities. You've got junior colleges here. I've toured some of these around the state over the last couple of months. You've got colleges, two-year colleges, that not only will teach you the basics of reading and writing skills and math skills and science skills, but they're also going to teach a trade. Some of the, and there's a lot of federal dollars come to that. Part of the problem is that we don't promote those enough. We have workforce development programs in this state that we need to promote. You know, it was those trades. It was the manufacturing jobs, the men and women who were on the floors of the manufacturing jobs here that built the middle class in this state and this country. And those jobs have been going away. We need to make sure there's enough jobs to come into Alabama if we can train people for those jobs and to train displaced workers. But we've got to encourage them. We've got to say it's okay. It's fine. Go there. Get what you need, because these community colleges will have apprenticeships with the unions. They have partnerships with the businesses around there. Those are good paying jobs. They're $15, $20, $30 an hour. You can make a good living in those jobs, and we need to encourage people. Not every child has to go to four-year college to make a great living and to be a productive member of society. But I will say, I want to do something about student debt. We really need to work on that. It is such a burden once you get to those. I am concerned, I'm concerned a little bit about what I'm seeing and going back to the tax plan, where these tax plans want to impose taxes on young graduate students who are working and teaching, and in return they're getting their tuition paid for, and they get a stipend, and sometimes that's $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a year, and they want to tax those kids for that? Come on, give me a break. We need to be encouraging that kind of graduate student extra work. We don't need to be taxing. These universities can afford it. They've been doing it. So I think there's a lot of ways that we can encourage education in a lot of different ways and a lot of different types of education sources out there.
And this is our last question for the evening. This person is undecided, and she says she really likes you. So it says, I would like to know your platform about your thoughts on whether you would support women's clinics that provide assistance to women wishing to either keep their babies or place them for adoption. Simply, would you support additional assistance programs aimed at providing loving and supportive community programs to infants in any kind of way?
I'd love to see that. I mean, look, the fact of the matter is, in this state, we lose way too many babies. We still lose way too many babies in this state. That's part of that overall healthcare system that I think is being lost. Women's health care in this state needs a boost. We need to give access. There are too many single mothers that are taking their children to emergency rooms for routine health care. There's too many women who get caught in a cycle that can't properly care for their children once they're born, and they don't even get the prenatal care that they need when they're carrying that baby. I think access to health care is a fundamental right in this country, and we need to make sure that everybody has it. And that's what I want to make sure that we do. Is that, can I kind of close out with something here? Folks, thank you for this. Thank you for coming. We didn't get to all the issues I know that people are itching to hear about. I've called in to some friends and supporters around the country in the last week who have been gathering to help this campaign. And I've told them, I said, I know everybody wants to talk about the burning question that's in everybody's mind in Alabama right now, that's on the topic of all the news, but I'm not going to try to predict the Iron Bowl coming up, I promise you. But I do want to say this, and I hope you will look. And for those of you who here have not quite made up your mind, I hope you'll take a good look at where we stand on issues. I hope you will take a good look. And you won't agree with everything, as I said earlier. But I hope you'll take a look, and I hope you'll walk away from this program tonight knowing that you've got somebody standing before you who will listen to you. I promise you I will listen to you. I will try to find that common ground. I will try to reach across, because compromise is a good thing. You do not have to compromise principles in order to compromise to get things done on specific issues. And compromise is not a dirty word when it comes to that. It is, quite frankly, folks, the only way we can break the logjam and the dysfunction in our Senate and in our Congress. And I want you to compare. I challenge you to do your homework, to compare. Look past R's and D's and compare and see who do you want to represent you in the United States Senate. Who do you want in January when the national news media turns on and they're interviewing the junior senator from Alabama? Who is it you want, and what do you want them to say? And what do you think that they will say, or are you going to be afraid of what they're going to say? Take a good look at those issues. I want to close with simply this. Alabama, I believe, is at a true crossroads. I truly believe that we are at a crossroads. I don't know if we can get more divided, but we can. We have done it in the past. Divisions in this country have often started, more often than not, and you know what I'm talking about. They've started right here in the South. We need a voice from the South that can help start the healing across this country. Those can start right here. And as I told you earlier, and as some of you have probably heard me say before, and I said earlier, when I became the U.S. Attorney, and I sat down with my staff and we talked about that church bombing case, they said it's a long shot, Doug. But folks, we were successful. We were successful because we had the passion and we had the drive, but more importantly, we knew we were on the right side of history. We were on the right side of justice. We were on the right side of making sure everyone is treated fairly in this state. And as I travel around and I see how this state, this race has developed, I truly believe this campaign is on the right side of history, because this campaign, and all of you that are out there and that have been supportive of this campaign, you are on the right side of history. You are on the right side of justice and equality for every man, woman, and child. And with that, and for that reason, we're going to be successful on December 12th. So thank you all for having me today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
So tonight we have heard a...
All right, everyone, so that's the end of that Doug Jones Town Hall event. That town hall was taking place at the same time that that Bill de Blasio event was taking place, that town hall. So I decided to record this Doug Jones one for you and play it as soon as that Bill de Blasio town hall wrapped up in New York. So we have just had a town hall filled stream, that's for sure. Lots of town halls today, well, at least two. I want to go ahead and take you guys to some breaking news now. You probably already heard about it. It was breaking in the last couple hours. But David Cassidy dead at 67. This is the official TMZ report. This article, this news coming in just the last couple hours. David Cassidy, the Partridge Family heartthrob who sold millions of records and became the fantasy of millions of girls, is dead. Cassidy died in a Florida hospital after his organs failed. Family sources tell TMZ that David had been on life support since Monday. That's yesterday. Doctors advised the family today that the only way David could survive was with a liver transplant, but he was not a candidate because he would never survive surgery. The family decided at around noon to remove life support. Now, a number of family members were present when he died, including his brother Sean, Patrick, and Ryan, his children Bo and Katie, along with various nephews and his ex-wife Sue Cassidy. According to TMZ, the death came almost immediately after life support was withdrawn. Now, TMZ broke the story. David was in need of a kidney transplant, but ultimately doctors said it was futile. His liver and other organs shut down. And early Sunday, his son and ex-wife were summoned to the hospital to say goodbye. Now, Cassidy was a multifaceted entertainer, from singing to acting to Broadway to Vegas. The Partridge Family hit like an earthquake and catapulted him to stardom. The show ran from 1970 to 1974 and produced hits like I Think I Love You, Come On Get Happy, and Doesn't Somebody Want to Be Wanted. Now, David reluctantly auditioned for the role of the guitar-playing Keith Partridge, and producers cast him not even knowing if he could carry a tune. Now, after the Partridge Family ran its course, David recorded a number of solo hits, including the remakes of Cherish, How Can I Be Sure, and Rock Me Baby. He took the starring role on Broadway in Joseph and the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat from 1983 to 1984. Now, David was the son of actor Jack Cassidy and Broadway performer Evelyn Ward. He guest starred in a number of TV series. He also battled alcoholism for most of his adult life. So again, breaking news, David Cassidy dead at the age of 67. Let's go ahead and click on this article about his organs failing. This is news that TMZ broke just 3 days ago about David Cassidy being in critical condition. 3 days ago, the TMZ article said that he was in the hospital in critical conditions. His organs were shutting down, and as one source put it, it's looking grim. Now, according to this article that was posted on the 18th, David Cassidy was rushed to the hospital 3 days before, which was the 15th. And his condition had been worsening ever since he entered the hospital. The report as of 3 days ago was that David was in an induced coma and was in and out of consciousness. Again, David Cassidy dead at the age of 67. TMZ has a gallery remembering David Cassidy, a series of photos. Let's go ahead and go through and click through here. Again, David Cassidy dead at the age of 67. This is the tribute on TMZ.com. His organs failed, and he died today. All right, everyone, that was our breaking news report. We have one more entertainment story. I guess it's entertainment slash politics, because Meghan McCain is married now. This is the latest news. Let's see if I can pull up an article. Let's go ahead and get you the page 6 article. Meghan McCain and Ben Dominic tie the knot. Apparently, Meghan McCain getting married today here in Arizona at her family's Cornville ranch, often described as their Sedona ranch. She married her 35-year-old boyfriend. Senator McCain walked her down the aisle and gave her away. And that is the latest news here on News Now. Here's a live look at New York City. Appreciate everyone tuning in. We'll have more News Now tomorrow. Thanks for watching.